I'm reading stuff from. Good morning and welcome to the first ever Mike Graham Show, breakfast at Tiffany's. Actually, it's not at Tiffany's, obviously, is it? It's in London. I'm delighted to say at 7 o'clock we are live, and this is the first ever live breakfast show for the Mike Graham Show. And I'm delighted to say that my very first guest on this very first show, a very special guest, the beautiful and wonderful Emma Wolf. Emma, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thank you for getting up so early and cycling all the way in. People were saying earlier on, because we did a little run through on Saturday, Russell Quirk arrived a bit late because I gave him the wrong time, and people were already on our chat room. And welcome to all of you who are in the chat room already. There's already 2,500 of you in there, I think, maybe more. Asking if I told Emma Wolf the right time. We can reveal exclusively that you've been here for nearly an hour.
I have.
You came with coffee. We've got our own little studio here. We've got a little bougie kind of a kitchen arrangement. You can see some coffee cups. You can see some water. We're going to be talking about a great many things, of course. We're not going to bore you to death about Venezuela because, you know, that story is all very good, all very well, but, you know, it doesn't affect us. Apart from, of course, Keir Starmer, who doesn't have a clue what to do about it. He's not sure whether Donald Trump has broken international law because he hasn't had his instructions from the European Union yet. As you can see on the screen, we've got some great messages coming in already. Good luck, Mike, says Jim, who's James. Good morning, guys, says Duncan. We've had messages from Japan. We've had messages from Western Canada. This show, I tell you, I kid you not, is going to be huge. Emma, so great to have you here for the first show ever.
Such an exciting moment.
Such a great vibe we've got going on in the studio. We've got the papers here. We're going to run through a whole bunch of stories. But let's talk first of all about the weather, because when you cycled in, and I mean, you must have come over some black ice because it's 0 degrees here. We're hearing from my friend Donald in Scotland that it's -6 in Lithgow. It's -6 for Charlotte, one of our producers up in Derbyshire somewhere. It's bloody freezing, isn't it?
Yeah, and it does this weird thing where the temperature dips. You think that, I don't know, the middle of the night is going to be the darkest. And then about 4 or 5 in the morning, it suddenly goes to like -3, -4. So I'm cycling along thinking, right, I'll go over some ice in a minute. Instead of which, our glorious mayor of London seems to have dumped a kind of 10 tons of sand or grit, I don't know what, all the way along the embankment. So I'm cycling, I'm cycling through this stuff. It's all flying up into the road.
Yeah.
I mean, you could either have icy roads or you have this kind of, sand, gritty
stuff. Yeah, well,
which you're going to get in everybody's tyres.
Normally by this time of year, they've sort of run out of salt, haven't they? Or they haven't bought any salt because they haven't got enough money because they've run out of money because they're too busy putting asylum seekers in hotels and too busy paying for people to go to the NHS in cabs up and down the country. We've got a couple of migrant stories to tell you about earlier on. But the messages are flooding in, so thank you to we don't get to all of them. We'll be doing some super chats coming up in about 5 or 10 minutes, which is what you can do, of course, if you want to join in and get your name pumped right to the top of the list and read out. That's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about Prince Harry, who looks like he's going to get latest security detail. Good morning, Mike and Emma. Looking forward to the show, says Wendy. Thank you very much indeed. We're going to talk about Donald Trump, who apparently now wants to go after Greenland. He's already decided taking over Venezuela is not good enough, right?
Well, can he just hurry up and take over the UK?
Yeah. Can he send the old Delta Force in to kidnap Keir Starmer?
Yeah.
Although a bit like we used to say about some former colleagues of ours, that if they kidnapped Keir Starmer, they'd probably give him back about 5 minutes later. He's so boring, But we'll be showing you pictures of that. We'll be showing you pictures of Maduro going into New York. We'll be showing you some of what Keir Starmer said yesterday. He was being interviewed by Laura Kunsberg on the BBC. Terrible interview, by the way. Went on for nearly an hour.
Yeah.
And he
just pretty much nothing.
Came across as a complete and utter hopeless. The Daily Mail has said that the PM faces revolt by Labour's Maduro apologists. But he also says, where's the story that says ousting me would be a gift for Farage? So he's basically saying, you've got to keep me in the job.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, it'll be even worse.
That's literally his only defence, is you've got to keep me because it would be worse. You might get Farage. Does he not understand? That's what the country want.
Yeah.
That's why the polls are showing huge support for Farage.
And one of the funniest
support for him.
And one of the funniest moments for me yesterday when Laura Kunsberg was talking to him was he said, look at exactly how the right wing is sweeping across Europe, and I'm kind of going, yeah. And look at what's happening in France, yeah. Look at what's happening in Italy, in Germany. All these populist parties are getting into power and they're becoming a real problem. And it's like, well, yeah, because that's what people want to put into power. Because people are sick of left-wing democracy deniers like Keir Starmer. And do you know what Laura Kunsberg never did? She didn't even ask him about cancelling the elections.
Yeah.
Which is the single worst thing that any prime minister has ever done.
And which he has not explained or justified or in any way explain to the British people.
No.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
I know, it really is. Somebody's told me my tie's not straight. But does it look straight to you?
Looks straight.
Yeah, it looks all right. Yeah, okay. Anyway, listen, feel free to criticise me as much as you like. Shall we have a look at a couple of clips before we do anything else? Let's have a look at Keir Starmer, actually, from yesterday. This was when he was interviewed by Laura Kunsberg. And this was him basically talking about the Venezuela situation. Check it out.
And you've been incredibly clear always that Vladimir Putin's attack on a sovereign country of Ukraine was wrong and ought to be condemned. What about President Trump's attack on a sovereign country of Venezuela? There are all sorts of horrors that we know about President Maduro's government, but for America to strike that country and then capture its leader, that's an action against a sovereign state that surely flies in the face of international law.
Well, at the moment, it's a fast-moving situation.
We know those facts. President Trump, the White House has said that they captured Maduro and they struck his country. So there's a lot we don't know, but we do know that. So will you condemn that action against a sovereign state?
Well, I want to get all the material facts together, and we simply haven't got the full picture at the moment. It's fast-moving. And we need to piece that together. I can be really clear with you that there was no UK involvement in this operation. And obviously we're working in relation to British citizens and nationals who are there with our embassy. But we need to establish a full picture. I then need to speak to President Trump. I need to speak to our allies. But I don't shy away from this. I've been a lifelong advocate of international law and the importance of compliance with international law. But I want to ensure that I've got all the facts at my disposal, and we haven't got that at the moment, and we need to get that before we come to a decision about.
I want to have all the facts before I make a decision. Can you imagine if Stalin was in charge during the Second World War, trying to organise D-Day, right? You'd be like, first we must have an inquiry as to whether or not it's safe to go across the channel. I mean, what a complete utter knob. I'm sorry. I think I can say that's not a terrible word. Knob's though, right, isn't it?
I am not kidding you. I was at a birthday party for 5-year-olds on Saturday, and they all knew more about the Venezuela situation by Saturday morning than Keir Starmer did. He doesn't even have a view. He doesn't have an opinion. He doesn't have a moral sense of what's right and wrong.
No.
I would respect him more. You may disagree with someone like Georgia Maloney, but at least she came out and had an opinion.
Yeah.
I don't mind disagreeing with people, but when he doesn't even know which way the wind blows, he doesn't know what he should say. So he just says, we're establishing all the facts. It's really clear
Embarrassing.
that our Defence Department are not in touch with them. Hesketh probably doesn't even know who
Right.
Starmer is.
They haven't bothered telling him anything,
This is the nail in the coffin of the special relationship. Trump has not been in touch at all.
Well, this is what people were saying all through the weekend, that we are so out of the loop now.
We're so out of the loop.
The world's kind
We're
of,
irrelevant.
yeah, we are totally irrelevant.
Yeah.
And, you know, the other problem for Starmer is that even people like Jeremy Corbyn, whether you like him or not, at least he's got a view.
Yeah.
He says, you know, this is a terrible thing.
Ed Davey.
Ed Davey
had a view.
Farage said that he thinks it might be a breach of international law, but it could be a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, the idea that they say, oh, nobody's going to mourn the disappearance of the leader of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro. However, in the same breath, the British bombers, the RAF, are bombing the hell out of Syria.
Exactly.
Well, isn't that a breach of international law?
Huh? International law only applies to Donald Trump, remember?
Yeah.
Doesn't apply to anyone else.
Here's what Donald Trump told the Atlantic magazine, apparently. He said he fancies the Danish territory, Greenland. He says, we do need Greenland because it's surrounded by Russian and Chinese ships, right? And he says, we must annex it for US security. We need it for defense. Jens Frederik Nielsen, the Prime Minister of Greenland, yesterday rebuked the Trump administration, calling it disrespectful and saying the territory was not for sale.
You literally could hear them all clutching at their pearls, as he said about Greenland.
Right. And of course, it's part of Denmark, which is quite weird, and it's apparently the biggest island in the world.
Yeah, astonishing.
Which is astonishing. There's only about 50,000 people living there.
Amazing.
It is amazing. So, I mean, we watched that with some interest. That's the front page of the Telegraph, of course. Shall we have a quick look, actually? We've got all the front pages. Most of them are on some mixture of Trump and or Keir Starmer. As I say, Daily Mail's got PM faces revolt by Labour's Maduro apologists, because these are the people on the left of the party who want him to be much more of a kind of left-wing prime minister. The trouble with him is he doesn't know which end is up, does he?
Exactly.
He doesn't know what he is.
If he at least had a view, as I say, one could disagree with him, but he could have some principles, some morals, and some kind of backbone, but he doesn't seem to have anything.
No.
He's kind of like a bowl of semolina, you know, kind of like
a jellyfish, isn't he? I mean, literally, except he doesn't have a stinger. You know, he's like the most useless jellyfish in the world. He can't sting anyone.
So,
can't actually do anything.
An amoeba, who is
there.
And remember, not male or female.
Floating in the sea. Maybe we could do him up as a jellyfish. That would be quite funny. Shall we have a look at some messages now, though? Because so many of you have tuned in. We're really, really delighted to be here. Emma Wolf here for the very first time. And she's going to be a regular on this show because, of course, we love Emma, always have. Welcome back, Mike. Says Aileen Welsh, 2127. Congratulations on your first official show, says Mick. Good morning, Mike and Emma. Good luck today with your first show from Hammer. Morning, Mike. Great to have you back. That's from Alan Ward. Fab Studio, says Izzy. Yeah, thanks to Pooch for the Fab Studio, by the way, because you can see behind me over that shoulder there, our plaque from YouTube when we already hit 100,000 subscribers. We've now got 120,000 subscribers, but please do like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, because the more subscribers we get, the bigger we get, the more we grow, the better we can look after the guests and the better we can look after you. We've also, just before we started the show, by the way, this is brilliant, have burst through 3 million views already. And this is only day one. So we've got a very, very long way to go. And we've got lots and lots of things to tell you about. So it's absolutely fantastic. Should we talk about the dreaded Prince Harry?
Yes.
Because he's on the front page, I think, of the...
Don't get me started. Harry and Meghan.
After all of this, after millions and millions of taxpayers' money being spent on defending the Crown and defending the Home Office, it looks as though he's actually going to get the security detail that he's been asking for what, about 2 years?
So let's talk about Harry's addiction to kind of litigation. He's dragging everybody through the courts endlessly. He fled the UK, not wanting anything to do with us, wanting to, you know, leave the royal family, all of that. Now it looks like he is going to get his armed police protection. Last time we saw Harry here, he was kind of wandering around Chelsea looking for the party, man.
I remember that.
Wasn't he? I mean, he was doing some weird doorbell ringing in the middle of the morning.
That was all very strange, wasn't it?
Sort of a Sunday morning, like, guys, where's the... I don't know what he was looking for.
I mean, who does that?
Who does that? Who does that if they're Prince Harry?
Yeah.
Who's what? How many in line to the throne?
Is it 6 there or something?
Six, yeah.
In line to
But anyway, that was not a safe thing to be doing anyway. So I'm not convinced that he's that worried about his own protection. When he visits Britain, is he coming back soon? Is Meghan ever going to come back? And, you know,
well, do you know what I thought when I read this story this morning? Is I thought,
go, man, please just leave or come back or whatever, but just leave us alone.
Right. But you know, I always used to say this about Alex Salmond when Scotland first got its own powers, got its own parliament, and Alex Salmond used to say that he couldn't do things because Westminster wouldn't let him do them, and it was a great defence for everything that he didn't want to do. Because whenever they said, "Well, we can give you permission to do that," he didn't want that. It was like, "Oh my God!" And Alex Salmond was a mate of mine, so this is nothing against him. God rest his soul, fantastic guy. But this is almost dangerous now for Harry, because if they do say they've got the security detail, now he has to come back. Yeah. And he's got no excuse not to bring Meghan, no excuse not to bring the kids.
Children.
So
who have not met their cousins. This is so bizarre when you really think about it for Archie and Lilibet, what Harry and Meghan are doing.
Yeah.
I think is actually really, really sad and depressing. And also the royal family have been through enough. Charles and you know, obviously Princess Catherine, they've been through enough.
Still suffering
over the past few years.
Recovering from cancer.
Still
right?
both having, well, yeah, and the king is still having treatment, isn't he? I think Harry just, you know, needs to grow up.
Yes.
He's over 40 now. He needs to grow.
I mean, you've got a young son who is probably more mature than
Prince Harry.
Right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, Harry is just a spoilt brat
At some point,
who can't. You just stop asking for the same
stop
thing.
going on about your victimhood and your childhood and how you were always second in line and how you got. In his memoir, he talks about getting the smaller bedroom or getting the smaller, not getting the, you know, as good treatment as William.
Yes.
At some point, you just get on with your life.
I mean,
he's married. He's got a family.
It's embarrassing.
It's embarrassing.
It really is. Talking about your son, by the way, with your permission, I'm going to play this because we couldn't figure out actually how to transfer it onto the main switchboard, the leaderboard, whatever you call it. So I'm just going to play this. Your son Ludo, how old is he?
5.
He's 5, right? He's going back to school today. Emma's going to have to rush.
Thank Lord.
Back to school. Yeah, you'll be pleased about that. So if you're actually getting the kids up and getting them ready for school in this horrible cold weather, do send us some pictures, by the way, and we'll see if we can broadcast some of them if the weather's particularly bad where you are. But have a listen to this. This is Ludo Wolf. Obviously a very, very smart and incredibly clever young man. Have a listen. Let's give it another go. There we go.
So he's spent the weekend running around Shoreditch shouting at people. The Mike Graham Show is the only place to be. Tune in 7
That's brilliant. Does he want a job? Because, you know, we don't care about the rules.
He could be a runner.
You can't hire any. You can make coffee, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But seriously, back to school though for mothers, particularly for women like yourself, single mothers, of which there are many.
It's a long old haul.
It's a massive old haul to have. Because I mean, I was talking to my son who was back working. He's working in London, starting again today. It's been off for the last 2 weeks, and he actually said to me, he's 18. He said, you know, the holiday was too long.
Yeah.
Because people, you know, he works down in Westminster, and it's like, you know, all the politicians take 2 weeks off effectively, and it's too long, isn't it?
Well, for starters, Mike, some people have had time off. Isn't that kind of astonishing to us? Because we just kind of keep going.
Yeah, really.
Secondly, 18 days of Christmas holidays. I think in the summer it's something like 6-7 weeks. What are actually working parents meant to do?
Yeah.
It's a long time. Plus, schools do this cunning thing where they add on inset days here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah.
They're not doing inset. They're not doing training.
No.
The schools are closed. Teachers, well, I shouldn't be rude about teachers because they do a phenomenal job.
I think some are better than others, aren't they? I mean, it's as simple as that.
It's like GPs.
Yeah.
You know, some nurses and doctors are amazing and some are lazy as anything.
I mean, we're still playing some more of your messages. If you're watching on YouTube, and 7,000 of you are, 7.2 thousand of you. Thank you so much. What a brilliant start to the new year for us here at the Mike Graham Show. Don't forget, please do like and subscribe to the new channel, because we're going to try and get the numbers up to 200,000 quicker than you can say Jack Robinson. The other thing that I want to say is that if you are a member of our Substack, which is something that we're kind of learning all about. Basically, we're going to do an after show today, and today it's going to be with Angela Levin, the royal correspondent. We're going to talk to her about the royals, not least Prince Harry, but also this story, which is in the Telegraph, page 7. Royals fly twice around the world in helicopters. Now, both King Charles and William are both advocates of the green agenda, aren't they? They're all telling us how we should be greener. And Charles has got this car, that Aston Martin, that runs on Stilton and wine or something ridiculous, right? But currently 2 new Royal helicopters that came into service earlier this year have notched up 58,000 miles between them, the equivalent of flying twice around the Earth.
Honestly,
and these are senior royals, right?
The hypocrisy of this stuff, the Earthshot Prize, you know, saving the planet, King Charles talking to his plants and all of that.
Yeah.
It's the hypocrisy. It's like the celebrities flying into their private islands and lecturing the rest of us about having maybe one family holiday a year.
Yeah, I mean, how dare
we
they?
get on a little flight to Spain or something.
Right. How about
turning down our heating and having heat pumps.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. The Prince of Wales, who has made the environment a key plank of his work, plank being the operative word, actually, I'll tell you what, has proved an enthusiastic user of the new fleet. 47 stops made in Windsor and a further 5 at Forest Lodge, the new family home they moved into in October. It's Windsor, right? What's he flying from London to Windsor?
Ridiculous.
Yeah, get on the bleeding train.
Plenty of trains.
Get in a car.
Get in a car.
You know, apparently the data suggests that he flew by helicopter to multiple jobs each month, including a referee training course in Walsall, right? A women's rugby match in Exeter, a visit to the England women's football team at their training base in Staffordshire, and a homewards job in Sheffield, and an Earthshot job in Norwich.
Yeah.
I mean, he's running Earthshot. He's flying in a helicopter.
Well, it was.
What a complete and utter hypocrite. Sorry, Prince William.
Yeah, well, no, a lot of the royals do this. They will literally, I mean, it was like the entire, how many thousands of politicians flew out to Brazil recently for COP?
Oh, there was dozens of them, wasn't there? Hundreds of them.
It was a junket. It was a jolly.
Yeah.
It wasn't, key politicians. It wasn't Ed Miliband and his senior team.
Yeah.
It was thousands and thousands, especially Labour politicians, who were out there at the taxpayers' expense, lecturing the rest of us, making these nonsense COP pledges.
Right.
None of those COP, what was it? What was the last one? Sharm el Sheikh, Glasgow, Paris.
They had Qatar, didn't they?
They do it and COP goes on for a couple of weeks.
And the only thing they ever decide, right? The only thing they ever decide is where the next meeting's going to be.
Exactly.
Because they don't make any difference to the world whatsoever.
And the pledges are never carried through, and they have absolutely no impact.
No, exactly.
Except on the, the carbon emissions.
Yeah, exactly right. A couple more stories to look at, by the way. We'll keep looking at your messages as you put them in. We've got to do some super chats, haven't we? Yeah. Have we got some super chats, Pooch? Let's do a few super chats. This is for people who actually send us a little bit of money to get their names pushed right to the top. From Lynn, 5050, says, thank you very much indeed. Welcome. One from Ralphie D. Here we go. Ralphie D, thank you very much indeed. That's another super chat. Happy and excited that your new show is here, says Laura Jane, 2619. We're now up to 7.7 thousand people live on the show. From Jeff Nelson, rather. Great to see you. Best of luck from the USA. We've already had messages from Canada and from Japan, by the way. Peer character jumping up and down saying #1 fan. Peer character? Don't know. Paula says hello from her super chat. Paula Amazon. Super chat from Brick Plays 76. Good morning, Mike. Absolutely love the show. Well, we love having you, and we love having Emma Wolf here as well. It's got a really good vibe, this, doesn't it?
Really good. It's really fun, Mike. And honestly, it's such a community. We can see the amount of people that are watching. And a friend of ours, who we both used to work with, who I won't name, is also watching from a cruise ship in the Bahamas.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Well, it's a worldwide show, and as you can see, it's the real home of common sense, except no substitutes. Laura Jane says Keir Starmer should be named Plank of the Century. That's another super chat. One from Elaine. It says Keir been having speech therapy. Ugh. Well, somebody said yesterday when they were when I was watching all the sort of comments on Twitter about his interview with Laura Kuenssberg, which is to say she didn't really pin him down because he did all the things. I actually made a list last night of some of the things that he said, because it's like sort of, Keir Starmer bingo, right? Where are we? Starmer speak.
Voice coach early on. There was a voice coach who had broken various.
The one who came to see him on Christmas Eve.
Yes.
Very dodgy. That.
Very dodgy.
Very dodgy.
We never got to the.
But here's some of the phrases, you may recognise them. He actually said laser focused about 3 times. We're laser focused on fixing the economy. Gold standard apprenticeships, right? What does it mean?
What does it mean?
He says, I'm very much in favour. He says, wait, these are all the lies that Labour keeps saying. Wages are up. Well, of course wages are up, because you keep giving pay rises to the bleeding public sector, you complete and utter numpty. And if you put people's wages up in the public sector, it looks like wages have gone up, right? Renewal. A lot of talk of renewal.
Resetting,
what does
renewal.
It mean? Renewal.
Yep.
And then he said he's going to be here in 2027. And as the story in the Times says, he says, getting rid of him would be a bad idea, because it would be an advantage to Nigel Farage, who, as you say, everybody wants to have in anyway.
People are voting for. That's why he's top of the polls. When he says, I'll still be here in 2027, it's that moment when you would just want to reach for cyanide, isn't it? You just think, no, really?
Yourself,
No, yes, for ourselves.
Yeah.
2027.
But this is the thing. He won't be here in 2027. Even his own party doesn't want him.
Well, Mike,
right?
all last year you were saying he'll be gone, and I just want your prediction this year to be right, because you did say that. No, but you did say
he surely can't get past May.
we were on air the morning after the election, that dreaded July the 5th, and we just sat there and you said he won't last a year, and he did. And then he lasted all through 2025.
Yeah, but he is the most unpopular prime minister in the history of prime ministers, right?
Yeah, but he's still there.
I know.
He's still in number 10.
And that's what's wrong with our system, I think.
Yes.
I think the system is broken,
Yeah.
Which is why people want reform to get in, because the whole two-party system is busted.
It is.
And nobody can get through it. Because here's something that really worried me a lot, and he said this a lot, and I'm going to talk to Mark Littlewood, the economist who's coming on a little bit later on in this hour. He started talking a lot about the European Union and realignment and getting closer ties with the EU. And then he kept saying something which I haven't heard him say before, but he kept repeating it. He said, this will be a sovereign decision. And I looked up what that means. And a sovereign decision is effectively a decision taken by the government which cannot be rescinded, right? Yeah. Which is not been, they've not been elected. There's been no referendum. So they've said, we want closer alignment with the EU. And once we've done that, you won't be able to do anything about it.
But to be honest with you, it feels like he does a lot of that anyway. Digital ID. How many millions signed that petition against digital ID? And the government response was, we're going to do it anyway. Not even anyway. They just said, yes, we are going to do this. Yeah. So they make these kind of decisions all the time.
Yeah.
They don't feel there's
doesn't feel care like about any the people, do they?
Consultative process at all.
Because they think they know better.
Yeah.
They don't think they need to consult the public at all. Because
once
again, he came out with all the usual lies, right? Like, for example, we've deported 50,000 people. That number has stayed the same since a year ago in November. Yeah. Right, so more than a year they've been claiming 50,000 people have been deported. The truth is, only about 3,000 people were deported. Everybody else went voluntarily.
Many of them have come back,
and some of them have come back, and some of them are even paid to go.
Some of them are paid to go. Right. Often we have to exchange other people in return for, one in, one out, and all of that. Yeah. And as you've pointed out many times, often it's the same guys being filmed with their blue plastic bags.
I know.
Going in
and out.
It's
ridiculous. Then he starts banging on about the deals with India and the USA, the same deals which were done months ago. He hasn't done any more deals with anybody, right?
And all the stuff that Donald Trump announced on the state visit hasn't actually come to fruition. That's why the King and Camilla have to go over there this year and try and reheat that special relationship, which has gone very, very cold.
Yeah.
No, those deals are not actually, they're not actually happening.
And the Indian deal actually is better for people from India than it is for us, because it's giving Indian companies the right to come here, pay lower rates of national insurance, employ people for lower money than they would be paying British workers, and basically rip off the country and leave with a load of money.
But did you forget that everybody comes ahead of the British people in this government?
Yeah. I know, unbelievable. Should we have another Starmer clip, actually, before we go on? Because we've got more to talk about when it comes to illegal migrants, because there's another couple of stories in the papers today. We're up to 8.6 thousand people watching now, so this is a world record, I think. So thank you to everybody. We'll do some more of your messages. Let's have a look at what Keir Starmer said about what makes you British.
The next election is going to be unlike any election we've seen in this country for a very, very long time, because my strong view is it'll be a Labour government up against a very right-wing proposition in reform. And that reform proposition will be a proposition of toxic divide of this country. The next election is going to be about a question of what is it to be British? Mm-hmm. And I believe to be British is to be compassionate, reasonable, live and let live, and diverse. And I am proud to serve our diverse country and all of its parts. It is British to be diverse. And that is the essence of Britishness. That will be challenged at the next election by reform. And this country, if reform wins, will be torn apart in a toxic way. And my strong sense of history tells me that if a right-wing proposition like that gets in with that toxic divide, and things don't go the way they pretend they will, and they won't, they will move to the right, to the right, to the right. You can see this happening across Europe. This is happening. You can see the right-wing propositions in Germany, in France. If you look at the elections of this year, even in Norway, in the Netherlands, in Australia, and in Canada, it's been a fight between the moderates and a right-wing proposition. That is what we're up against. That is the fight of our times, and I intend to lead us into that fight. What I don't think will help us is if a Labour government turns into or turns back to the chaos of the last Tory government, that would gift Nigel Farage. We need to be clear. We need to turn the corner. As we're turning the corner, we need to stop the drift in this country. We need to shoot down this idea that slogans, easy answers, quick fixes, shortcuts are what fix the country. They didn't fix it. Johnson pretended to drive a bulldozer through a wall, pretending that would get you £350 for the NHS. It didn't happen. Farage pretended leaving the EU meant you would reduce your immigration. The opposite happened. Liz Truss pretended that if you ignored all the financial institutions, you could build the economy. Everybody paid the price. We're not going back to that. That's the last thing this country needs.
So that's Keir Starmer telling you all about how right-wing parties are doing better in Europe, and that's the big problem for us here in the UK. Well, the reason they're doing better in Europe is because people want them, because they're, quotes, popular, right? It was also when he came out with the immortal words, what does it mean to be British? And he said, apparently, in order to be British, you must be diverse. What does that even mean?
Because diversity is our strength, Mike. Don't forget, diversity is our strength.
Of old cobblers. I mean,
it is like 1984. It's like George Orwell. There's these scary mantras repeated at us relentlessly. The thing about why are there right-wing parties that are popular across Europe? That's the way democracy works.
Yeah.
People get a choice. If you don't like it,
right.
Don't be a politician.
And what Starmer likes to do, by the way, is to cancel the elections. I mean, that's what he's doing. We still don't know yet whether there's going to be any meaningful elections in Sussex, in West Sussex, in Suffolk.
It's appalling.
A whole bunch of different counties of this country, because Starmer has given permission for local councils, and some Tory councils have said they're going to do it, not to actually have an election in order to stop reform from winning a load of seats. It's disgusting, isn't it?
It's called running scared.
Yeah.
Running very, very scared.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely appalling. I don't know what we do. We need to take to the streets or something.
Well, I wonder how much people are going to be putting up with, because after a while they won't. Now, let's go back to what is one of the stories of the day. Apparently, according to the Daily Mail, page 14, illegal migrants who arrive in the UK from today. Yeah. So they're already saying, yeah, well, come on in. So we know they're going to be arriving from today. Will have their phones seized without police having to arrest them first. Sorry, I mean, I thought that they were all throwing their phones into the sea. So they didn't have any phones when they arrived.
Well, for starters, exactly. Most of them get rid of their ID and their phones and passports and any kind of identifying documentation, and then claim that they're 14 years old, even when they're sort of 29.
Secondly, with grey hair and a beard.
Exactly. These old guys. Oh, but I'm a minor.
How old are you, 14?
I'm a minor. Right. But what's really alarming about this is the kind of thing that should have been done, years ago.
Yeah.
They're now just announcing, oh, we can take their phones without police needing permission.
Yeah.
Of course this should have been happening.
Yeah.
If they're illegal, if they're crossing into this country, they're saying that taking their phones is going to help them to crack down on people smuggling. It's going to give them information about how the men got there.
And what are they going to do with the phones? Are they going to recycle them, or are they going to put them into those sex shops? And I mean, not proper sex shops, but there's a shop called Sex, which I think is SECS, it's spelled, where you can buy second-hand phones, second-hand
that are stolen, basically.
Yeah. So maybe they're going to end up there. I just don't know.
Mike, this reminds me of when Starmer announced that he'd found this Turkish man or an Afghan man who was making parts for a dinghy.
Yeah.
And that was going to be the key to smashing the gangs.
Oh yeah, that was the other thing that he said to Laura Kuenssberg yesterday, which I'm sorry to keep coming back to that same interview, but when he was asked about the Egyptian extremist guy, El Fatwa, whatever his name is, and he said, it was absolutely abhorrent what he said, and that's why we're having an inquiry into how it could have happened. And you go, no, just deport the guy. He's a scumbag,
Have you seen what he said about dudes? Have you seen what he said about British people? Have you seen what he said about
white people?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And he said it when he was 32 years old. He didn't say it when he was 18, but he might have been maybe a bit of a firecracker, whatever. But just incredible.
Absolutely.
You can't even make a decision about a bloke who wants to kill Jewish people and white people on the streets of Britain. He doesn't think it's a bad idea. And he couldn't even, and he said, oh, of course I regret saying I was delighted to have him come into the country. He can't even say sorry properly.
No, he can't.
What a plank.
Absolutely.
One final story. I know you've got to run. Page 3 of the Times, a little bit of light relief. It's all about dogs. A lovely picture of some Labradors. And we've got a picture of Ziggy up on the wall, actually, here, which was painted for me by a beautiful listener to my old show on Talk many years ago during COVID. And but they basically say scientists have worked out that they can create an e-nose to replicate how Labradors sniff out cancer in humans, which is going to be an amazing thing, isn't it?
It is amazing what dogs can do. They can sort of smell. I think it's something to do with hormones or pheromones or levels of active ingredients in the blood or something. But dogs have this amazing ability to sense when their owners are very unwell, or when they're about to pass out, or when their blood sugars go out of whack. I've heard the same with diabetes, things like that. Really, really clever animals, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely right. There's a couple of stories in the Times piece here as well. It says dogs' cancer detecting ability saved the life of Guest, who founded a charity 2 decades ago. In 2008, her Labrador Daisy, who had been trained to detect bladder cancer, started behaving a bit strangely around me, she said. She just kept nudging me on the chest. It was enough to make me feel my chest, and I found a lump. I went to my GP and was diagnosed with breast cancer. And early diagnosis meant that basically she could have surgery before it spread.
That is amazing.
Isn't that remarkable?
So they can almost feel and sense and smell or something, a tumour.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah,
And,
really.
we don't ever know just how amazing dogs are.
No.
I mean, all of us who have dogs absolutely love them to death. And, Ziggy, people say, let's have an update on Ziggy. He's getting a bit old now. He's 12 and he's a bit slow, he's a bit arthritic, can't get up the stairs like he used to. But he's such a wonderful creature. And Pooch has got a couple of dogs himself, who I've met and who are just lovely, beautiful, lively, fantastic, things to be around, And if you're ever feeling depressed or down, dogs can just make you feel better immediately.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's such a lovely thing. I'm just trying to find Guest's first name because I haven't actually given you that. But anyway, we'll find.
No, it's the highlight of the weekend is when you see Ziggy running around in the surf when you take him down to the coast.
Yes.
Absolutely lovely.
It is great. I mean, it'd be
Ziggy's
bleeding cold today though, so I'm quite glad I'm not having to do it. But there we are. Anyway, listen, Emma Wolf, what a fantastic debut. Thank you so much for coming in.
Honoured to be here on the
We're going to do something now which is going to blow your mind, right? We're going to introduce you to a man by the name of Edward Hughes, and he's Edward Hughes who does the news. Now, I'm not saying he's Welsh. He might be. Have a listen to this. This is Edward Hughes with the news live on the Mike Graham Show.
There are amber alerts for snow and ice across parts of Scotland and other regions, prompting flight cancellations, travel disruption, and school closures as commuters face difficult conditions. In politics, Prime Minister Keir Starmer warned that efforts to remove him mid-term would plunge the country into chaos as Parliament resumes business this week, with key Home Office questions scheduled in the Commons. On the economy, HSBC became the first major lender to cut mortgage rates after the Bank of England's recent base rate reduction, offering potential relief for homeowners. Didn't Richard III work for HSBC? Meanwhile, economists warn UK unemployment could rise to an 11-year high in 2026 amid weak private sector activity and cost pressures. Elsewhere, life-saving efforts continue after a teenage girl and her mother were swept out to sea by a freak wave. And in entertainment, TV highlights.
So that's Edward Hughes with the news. Thanks, Edward. Maybe we'll give him a bit more of a Welsh accent. We'll see how that goes over the course of time. You're watching the first ever Mike Graham Show. We are live on YouTube and we are here every day from 7 to 9 a.m. Emma Wolf's just done the papers. We've got more guests coming up. Mark Littlewood is going to be here with us very shortly. He's going to talk to us about Keir Starmer and particularly his wish to rejoin some kind of European directive. He wants to get closer ties with Europe. He says he doesn't want anything. Oh, there's from John there saying the clock on the wall is 2 minutes fast. By the way, one of the things that we did on Saturday was we got a lot of comments from people saying there's too many clocks, right? Because there's one, there's one down there. Is it down there? Yeah, there's one down there. And there's another one behind me. No, over there. Apparently it's 2 minutes fast. Watching from Edinburgh, says Stacey. Morning, Mike and Emma. So many of you watching. We're nearly at 10,000 people live, which is amazing. So good to hear Mike's voice again, says Justine Fleming. Thank you very much indeed. Good luck, Mike. Good to see you back on the morning airways. Onwards and upwards, says Sarah. Thank you very much indeed. So many of you joining in with the chat. Brilliant start, says Sue. Good morning, Mike. Good luck with the show. Been waiting with bated breath for this day. You will not disappoint. And that's from Wilhelm. Brilliant show, Mike, says Lena Thompson, 7972. I'll tell you what, it's a learning curve for all of us, right? Because I'm not used to just doing a live show streaming on YouTube, but we're getting there. A super chat from Susan. Is it Susan Netherland? I think so. Susan, thank you very much for that. You can do a super chat by joining in on YouTube. Just go follow the instructions. One from Fuzzy Balls. Very nice. Who was the last Prime Minister that Britons were happy with? Well, that's a good question. Who was the last Prime Minister that Britons were happy with? I don't really know. Probably Margaret Thatcher. but not everybody was. Super sticker from Ed James, lemon character and baby lemon jumping in the air to do a high five. Okay, not sure what that means. London has no credibility anymore over your long disastrous prime ministers, the way you guys pick your number one. Super chat from Dawn, who says, hello from Brisbane, Australia. Love your show, Mike. We've got people in Brisbane, Australia. We've got people in the Bahamas. We've got people in Japan. We've got people in Canada. Keir Starmer is so deluded, it's scary, says Leon. Calling normal people right wing. The level of hate I have for this man knows no bounds. I mean, never before or never hear Keir Starmer loves Ukraine and Brussels far more than the UK. Well, this is the problem. You know, he loves the idea that he's this international statesman, but when something happens on the international stage, like Donald Trump basically snatching Nicolas Maduro from Venezuela, he doesn't know what to say. He doesn't know where to go. It's completely and utterly ridiculous. While we're on that subject, should we have a look actually at Maduro? Because there's two bits of footage I want you to look at. There's one bit where he's taken into New York in a sort of, you know, motorcade of very heavily armed vehicles. Check this out. We can get there. So that was Nicolas Maduro there, arriving in New York. You have to say, you're going to take your hat off to the American military, haven't you? I mean, the Delta Force, who flew in those old Black Hawk helicopters probably, and a few Chinooks, and basically just snatched Maduro and his wife, put them on a plane, flew them to New York, charged him with narco-terrorism, and he's going to face a trial in the Southern District of New York, where, of course, the new mayor, Mandami, is a massive lefty and is already calling it a breach of international law. Yeah, well, he can get stuffed for a start because this guy's going down. He's going to end up same as old Pineapple Face. Remember him, Manuel Noriega, who I think is still languishing in some prison cell somewhere. But here's Maduro when he was at his height of pomp, where he was basically saying, "Come and get me if you think I've done anything wrong." Check it out.
Venga por mí. Aquí lo espero en Miraflores. No se tarde en llegar, cobarde.
I just got three things to say. God bless our troops. God bless America. And gentlemen, start your engine!
Plank of the day, if you like. Yeah. So that was what happens when you are Nicolas Maduro and you're the leader of Venezuela and you tell Donald Trump to come and get you. He then does come and get you, blows the hell out of your secret palace. And apparently, they were saying yesterday that quite a few members of Maduro's kind of close protection unit were killed by the Delta Force. But it doesn't appear that they killed any civilians. So we remain baffled as to why Keir Starmer doesn't appear to have an opinion on it at all. We're going to try and go to Mark Littlewood, who's our first proper guest on the show today. Economist, of course. I think he's still away in warmer climes. You'll be very, very pleased to know, Mark, if you can hear me, that it is -6 in parts of Britain, and it's 0 degrees here in London. So tell us where you are, if you're allowed to, on a security basis.
Well, I don't know. Can you hear me, Mike?
I can hear you, yes.
Oh, good. Sorry, slight technical. I'm in Tenerife. I wouldn't say it's lovely and warm, but I'm glad I've fled Starmer's Britain for New Year, Mike. It's at least sunny. We've had a bit of wind over the past couple of days, but I've completely avoided the snow. So I've got a few more days here of rest and relaxation.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, we'll solve all the technical problems. I'm delighted to tell you that we've got 10,000 people watching this show live, which is a massive number, bigger than I could have ever dreamed of. So I just want to offer my thanks to all the people who have tuned in to the first ever Mike Graham Show breakfast between 7 and 9 every single weekday morning. But we've got some very important stuff to talk about, Mark. I wanted to kick off with Keir Starmer. Yesterday's interview with Laura Kuenssberg was rather disturbing to those of us who thought Brexit was something that the people of Britain voted for, and the European Union was something that the people of Britain voted to leave, because he sounds very much like a man who wants to rejoin it.
Yeah, Mike, I think it's actually even worse than that, right? I mean, I know there are some people who are still trying to relitigate the battles of 10 years ago when we had the Brexit referendum. 10th anniversary, of course, will be in 2026. And some of them are saying we've got to rejoin the EU, we've got to get our seat round the table. And I oppose those arguments, but those arguments actually make a bit more sense than what the Prime Minister said to Laura Kuenssberg. But he basically wants to align with the EU, he says, without rejoining it. Well, that is the worst of all possible worlds. That's one in which we are told what our rules and regulations will be by Brussels, but have no seat round the table at all. Now, I'm pretty sceptical that Britain's seat round the table really wielded any real influence. We were very often had foisted upon us a whole range of regulations and directives we didn't want. But at least when we were in the EU, we had a seat round the table. Keir Starmer's position seems to be that he wants to take all of that and still not have a seat around the table. Absolutely ludicrous. So if we align with the EU, if we say that what comes out in terms of Brussels regulations about the single markets, how you regulate vacuum cleaners, light bulbs, insecticides, paint products, insurance products, you name it, we will adopt all of that. Well, that will make it near impossible for us to ever strike a trade deal with any other country in the world, because most trade deals are based around agreeing some regulatory compromises with other countries. Well, if we've agreed that we're just going to adopt the EU rule book, whatever that might be, and closely align with it, there's no point in sitting down with the Americans or the Canadians or the Indians or the Singaporeans to have a negotiation, because we would have already bought into all of their regulations. So the worst of all possible worlds. I think you're right in what you implied, Mike, that it's a bit sinister as well. You sort of suspect that they're trying to get us back into the EU inch by inch, rather than actually having the honesty to say we want to overturn the result of the 2016 referendum and revisit the whole thing. That would at least have the virtue of honesty, wouldn't it? Whereas this looks like sort of mission creep, slowly dragging us back in without actually having the fight about it.
Right. Because I was amazed at how bad the interview was, actually, in terms of what Laura Kuenssberg could have asked him about. And she tried to press him a bit on the European Union and exactly what it would look like and how his new kind of wish to have closer alignment would actually work, and which particular areas of industry or which particular areas of the economy he would get involved with. And he didn't really explain it. He couldn't really say how it would look. And he talks about, well, we've already done it with agriculture, which not a lot of people are happy about, and we didn't. And there was no exploration of that by Laura Kuenssberg, but she should have said, well, how does that affect British farmers? How does that affect the food industry in this country? Exactly what regulations are they now going to have to be subjected to? And there's no kind of clarity. And I find this really frustrating about the way that politicians are let off the hook every single time they're on like mainstream TV shows. They don't actually get asked anything at all. They get to give a stock answer and then they just move on to another question.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think actually usually Laura Kuenssberg is quite good at drilling in, but I didn't think in this interview that she was especially. She usually does press a bit harder, but there's all sorts of questions that need to be asked about this. I mean, the Prime Minister has got to sit back down and do another long form interview ASAP, so precisely those questions can be asked, Mike, because we need to be able to point to a whole range of areas in which us agreeing to align with the European Union, we can point to or suggest would be harmful to UK businesses. Now, everybody always focuses on the exporter, right? Supposing you're doing business with the single market, wouldn't it be easier if there's one set of rules? But look, it's true if you export to any country, to any market, you've got to abide by their rules, right? If you want to sell a particular product in Japan or America or Germany, it's got to be compliant with the rules that persist in that particular area. You can't sell something in Japan which breaches Japanese regulations. But that's not a reason for us to adopt Japanese regulations internally. And that's the bit that I think Laura Kunsberg didn't really tease out of him. So what I got from watching the PM, Mike, was it's just such vague stuff, isn't it? You can sort of just about get your head around that his view of the world is this globalist, international human rights, liberal, cosmopolitan, diversity is our strength sort of thing. That's basically what the Prime Minister thinks. But once you try and press him on the specifics, well, he's all fingers and thumbs, basically, isn't he? And that was true throughout the interview on basically every topic he was asked about.
But that's the other thing that really worried me as well, because I noticed he started using this phrase, and I don't know if you picked up on this, and he said it quite a lot and quite repeatedly and sort of almost deliberately. A sovereign decision, he kept saying. We're going to make a sovereign decision. And when I looked that up, it slightly worried me, because it sounds as though a sovereign decision is a decision that's made by a government or a ruling party without any kind of conversation or consultation with the electorate, without any consultation with the people, and without any regard to a previous referendum, for example, which took us out of the European Union and took us out of the customs union and took us out of all manner of ridiculous, red tape type scenarios, which he would suggest, it looks like, he wants to take us back into.
Yeah, that's right, Mike. It is somewhat unnerving, but again, I'm going to say I think it's even worse than what you've just said, because if you read the Labour Party's manifesto from before the last election, well, that's unambiguous. We won't be going back into the customs union and the single market. It says clear as day. That might have stuck in their throat a bit as they were saying it. They might not have been happy writing it, but they knew they had to pledge that, or they would have had far less chance of winning the general election. However, having made that pledge, it's a bit like the pledge that they've made around taxation. They're now trying to wriggle out of it. They're now trying to say, all right, well, we're not technically going to rejoin the single market. We're not technically going to rejoin the customs union, but it will be everything just short of that. In the same way, they're still arguing that they haven't broken their pledge on taxes. So all of this is there in black and white. And we're now involved in a semantic argument where, is this technically a breach of the Labour Party manifesto? Well, in spirit, unambiguously it is, Mike. Unambiguously, the pledge is here. And any normal person reading the Labour Party manifesto would have concluded that it was very clear they were not going to drag us back into the European Union. And in some size, shape or form, that's what they're doing. So it's a sovereign decision if by that the Prime Minister means that he's doing what he wants, irrespective of what he pledged to the British people prior to his election, right, irrespective of what the British people thought, and irrespective of how the British people voted in a referendum in 2016.
And is it something that's ever been used before, that phrase, or kind of enacted, if you like, by anyone? Because we're starting to get a bit worried here in the world of democracy, which is the Mike Graham show, where, he's cancelling elections. He's talking about making decisions based upon what the government wants to do, not what the people voted for or was in any manifesto that got them elected. I mean, it's beginning to look more and more like he's acting like, Nicolas Maduro more than anybody else in the world, He's just like doing whatever he wants to do against the wishes of the people.
Yeah, I think that the essential problem is that although Labour won the last election decisively, they basically won it by accident, right? Because the Conservatives were in such a mess and everybody was, there was such an overwhelming desire to kick the Tories out. So Keir Starmer at no point, despite his very substantial majority in Parliament, has really has his finger on the pulse of what the British people want. He didn't arrive in number 10 with a wave of enthusiasm because there was a whole series of policies that he was putting forward that the British people said, yeah, that's just what we need. He won by default, basically. So we're in this odd position in which we elected a Prime Minister with a massive majority, but not really because anybody was particularly fond of what he was standing for, merely because he was the easiest vehicle to kick out the Conservatives. And that's why we've now got ourselves, I think, into this pretty horrific mess, that he's not simpatico with the basic views and attitudes of the average electorate. He has this, I wouldn't go so far to describe it as a philosophy, Mike, but his basic view of the world is all, international human rights lawyers know best. And if only we listened to international human rights lawyers more, the world would be a better place. Well, that goes down like a cup of tepid sick with most of the electorate, that sort of attitude. So he's detached from what the electorate want. And therefore, you get these oddities. I thought it was very weird, the interview with Laura Kuenssberg, that you felt even if Keir Starmer did believe anything, he would be too scared to express it in an interview. So he doesn't even have the courage of whatever rather small convictions he might have. And on the election cancellation thing, Mike, I rather agree with you. I mean, I'm not a tinfoil hat kind of guy. But to have cancelled or postponed elections once because of an administrative reorganisation, all right, I mean, I'll raise an eyebrow, but I'll just about give you that. But when it comes around to that cycle and you're postponing them again, that is unnerving. I mean, if it really was an emergency brake applied last year, there's no excuse for applying it this year. And it's difficult, isn't it, not to reach the conclusion that they're trying to delay these elections, probably not cancel them forever, but delay them almost indefinitely because they fear what the electorate's going to tell them. Well, once you have a government that behaves that way, you are only 2 or 3 steps away from a dictatorship. So that's appalling. I mean, I know Reform and Nigel Farage are taking legal action about it. The Electoral Commission have slammed the government for it as well, saying there isn't really any grounds for this. If they wanted to reorganise local government and have us vote on different boundaries for different types of authorities, again, they should have put that in their manifesto, or even if it wasn't, they should have sorted all that out within their first few months of office, and then we can go to the polls. This will be the second round of local elections that they apparently want to disrupt. And surprise, surprise, it seems to be in areas in which most observers and pollsters would say they are going to get an absolute pasting. So how very convenient that those elections seem to be being postponed again. Pretty chilling stuff.
Getting away with, really. But again, part of that problem is that the media just lets them get away with it. Laura Kuenssberg could have pressed him on all sorts of things yesterday, and she just didn't really do it. By the way, just want to give you a quick time check. It's 7:55. We've been on the air for 55 minutes. There's 10,000 people watching. Please do continue to send in all of your great messages. We've got people listening in Australia, in Japan, in the Middle East, in Dubai, over in America, of course, in the Bahamas. -4 degrees south of Norwich, says Meow Moog. Good morning, Mike. It's fantastic to have you back in the morning, says Stevie Jenkins. If any of you want to keep giving us super chats as well, we'll push those straight to the top and try and read them out. We're trying to publish as many of the great messages as we can. One from Dog's Body. Wonderful to see you back. Good luck. Thank you very much indeed. We're talking to Mark Littlewood, who's over in Tenerife. Just came up there. I didn't quite catch it. Let me ask you about another headline in the Daily Mail today, Mark. UK faces zombie apocalypse over triple whammy of economic gloom. I mean, the world is so weird nowadays that doesn't even make anything other than a page 2 lead. Zombie apocalypse economy. That's what we're going to have.
Yeah, situational normal. Hey, Mike, Happy New Year to you and one and all. That's probably the most uplifting bit of news in the Daily Mail today, isn't it? Look, I mean, Britain's broken, really. I mean, nothing functions like it should in the UK. We're just about muddling through, but only just. The growth that we were promised by the Labour Party hasn't materialised at all. Not only were we promised it, we were told it was going to be their absolute number one priority. Well, it's difficult to see any step that they have made to try and prove that it's their number one priority. So we're gliding along, flatlining really. We're not quite in recession yet, but just on the brink of it. Real income per person is probably dropping because we measure the overall size of the economy, but the population keeps going up. So there's the same amount of money to spread around more people. It's a grim, grim state of affairs. And if you look at all of the indexes, which are a bit like opinion polls, really, but if you ask businesses or consumers about their levels of confidence, which is usually a pretty good sign about where the economy will go over the next 6 or 12 months. If a business is feeling confident, even if the prevailing conditions are bad now, that's the sort of scenario in which businesses might take on more staff, open a new depot, invest in some new machinery or whatever. Well, business confidence is diabolical. It's on the floor. Everybody is retrenching. So Keir Starmer, again in his interview, was sort of saying, well, 2026 is when we turn the corner. I'm not really sure that's true. I think 2026 might be when we actually finally crash into the wall. There's no real reason to believe, unless we get extraordinarily lucky, that we're suddenly going to turn a corner on the economy and all will be sweetness and light. The only thing that could help in that regard is if we just sort of catch a good breeze from the rest of the world doing well. You know, if America continues to grow at speed, if somehow Europe starts to turn its economy round, we would catch the good vibes from that. But I can't see anything turning the economy round which is going to be homegrown here or brought in by our own government. So I think the Daily Mail was insufficiently pessimistic in that headline, Mike.
I think so. But the thing is, he's so deluded, isn't he? Because he kept saying things yesterday. Here's Ian Pullock's message, and congratulations on the first show, 10,000 views, effing amazing. Well, it's actually 11,000 now, so it's even more amazing as we go into the second hour after 8 o'clock. Jamie Jenkins is going to join us, and don't forget there's an after show as well with Angela Levin, who's going to be talking about the royal situation, Prince Harry, who looks now as if he's going to get more taxpayers' money spent on him because he looks like he's going to have won his security detail that he wants to bring his family here. And so we'll bring you up to date on all of that. Plus, we'll be talking more about the state of the Channel migrant situation with Jamie Jenkins too, and we'll find out from him what the stats are. But this is the thing. He kept saying things like, you know, we're turning the corner. You know, you're going to see in the coming months the improvements that we've made in 2025 are going to start sort of, you know, showing benefits to the country. You're going to feel richer. I mean, I don't know where he's getting any of this stuff from, because he's the only person that in this world thinks that we're all going to be better off in 2026. I mean, I'm already worse off.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, the sort of scenario in which you might see these things working, Mike, and I'm trying to stretch credibility by giving the Prime Minister some modicum of credit or understanding here, but the sort of scenario in which it might work is if the government has taken some really tough, brave decisions that are going to take a little bit of time to actually come to fruition. You know, if, for example, you had radically liberalised our planning laws, making it easier to build houses, easier to build retail estates, easier to build commercial premises, then you might say, well, we've done that, but it's going to take 6 or 12 or 18 months or maybe 2 years before we start seeing the benefits of it. We would go all the way back to the Margaret Thatcher era. That's sort of what happened then. Some really tough medicine was taken in the first year or so of office, and we started to feel the healing effects of that in the second, third, fourth year of office. But what tough medicine have we taken under Keir Starmer other than just taxes going up? I don't know what seeds he's planted that he thinks is suddenly going to yield a bountiful harvest in 2026. Quite the opposite. He hasn't peppered the fertile land of Britain with seeds, he's peppered it with acid. So I don't think we're going to see any of these sort of metaphorical or literal crops grow. I can't think of any decision that the government has taken since it came to office where you'd say, well, that's a good move, but it's going to take a year or so until we feel the benefits. They haven't taken any moves that I can think of in which we would expect to see any benefits in terms of income going up, growth going up, or all the rest of it. So he's basing it all on a wing and a prayer, Mike. That's the thing. He's just hoping that from somewhere that we get some sort of turnaround. But as I say, I literally can't think of a single policy that Labour has brought in which is likely to increase economic growth or incomes. And I hope that interview with Laura Kuenssberg is played back at the end of the year, by which time Keir Starmer may well not be Prime Minister, but to whoever is, saying, well, look, you promised us things were going to get easier in 2026. They haven't, because that remains my pretty firm prediction. They won't.
Incredible. Mark, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to be back in Blighty later on this week. Hopefully by then they might have warmed up a bit in terms of the weather. But have a great time in Tenerife. Thank you very much indeed for your thoughts.
Great
and
to
thank
see
you
you,
for
Mike.
joining the first ever real home of common sense show, the Mike Graham Show, every single weekday morning now from 7 to 9 a.m. Don't forget, for those of you who are on Substack, which is themikegrahamshow.com, you can see an after show every single day, which will be exclusive only to people on Substack. I'm not sure if it's for people who pay premium on YouTube as well, is it? I think we'll upload it to that as well. But it's so that we're trying to make sure that everybody who wants to watch it for free can watch it for free, but we'll try and give extra content to people who are willing to pay a subscription, because, obviously, as you can see from this, a very lavish studio that I'm sitting in, you can't do it for nothing, unfortunately, as much as it would be nice if I could. So thank you for all your support. 11,000 people watching, which is absolutely incredible, more than our wildest dreams could have ever been. Behind me, you can see the subscription reward that I got from YouTube. It's over that shoulder there. No, it's not. It's over that shoulder there, isn't it? I always get that wrong. It looks like a gold one, which is actually a silver one for 100,000 subscribers. We were at 120,000 subscribers when we started this morning. I hope you'll be able to push that up towards 200,000. So please do like and subscribe to the new YouTube channel. Also, we've banged through 3 million views, right? And that was before this show started this morning. And all through the week, we were going to have a whole host of great guests talking to you about what's in the papers every single morning. This morning it was Emma Wolf. She was kind enough to kick us off for the first ever show. I can't tell you how excited I am to be back. I can't tell you how much I've missed talking to you all. And I can't tell you just how amazing it has been. Coming up after this, we're going to be checking back in with Edward Hughes with the news. He's the newsman who is got a coincidentally very similar name to a former newsreader from the BBC. I don't know how we found him, but Pooch is a man of great resource, and that's where he's gone. I can't tell if there's a little bit of a Welsh lilt in his voice either, but after this, we'll bring you the news with Hughes, and that's what we're going to be doing.
There are amber alerts for snow and ice across parts of Scotland and other regions, prompting flight cancellations, travel disruption, and school closures as commuters face difficult conditions. In politics, Prime Minister Keir Starmer warned that efforts to remove him mid-term would plunge the country into chaos as Parliament resumes business this week, with key Home Office questions scheduled in the Commons. On the economy, HSBC became the first major lender to cut mortgage rates after the Bank of England's recent base rate reduction, offering potential relief for homeowners. Didn't Richard III work for HSBC? Meanwhile, economists warn UK unemployment could rise to an 11-year high in 2026 amid weak private sector activity and cost pressures. Elsewhere, life-saving efforts continue after a teenage girl and her mother were swept out to sea by a freak wave. And in entertainment, TV highlights include the long-awaited return of Inspector Linley this evening.
That was Edward Hughes with the news. What an extraordinary name, and what an extraordinary piece of luck that we managed to find this guy. He's got a great voice, doesn't he? Tomorrow we'll bring you more from. In fact, we might even bring you an update towards 8:30 with more news from Edward Hughes, who seemingly seems to know quite a lot about Rachel Reeves, Richard III. Knew that she works at HSBC. I'm not sure if she did work at HSBC. I hope he hasn't got it wrong. I hope he's not texting anybody while he's reading the news, because obviously if he was doing that, he'd have to be fired, because you're not allowed to do that sort of thing. And I'm not sure if he's getting paid by the public purse either. But listen, welcome to the first ever edition of the Mike Graham Show. It is the real home of common sense. It is absolutely wonderful to have you along. We've got 11,000 people watching, and we had a great message, actually. I must show this to you. Last night, we had some really lovely, encouraging messages, many of them on Twitter, and I'm going to read you some Twitter tweets in a moment. But how about this from Canada? This is from R54. Loved your new live show, Mike. This is the one we did on Saturday. My expat husband and I watch every day from British Columbia in Canada. Attached are a few pictures I took of the many herons near where we live. Hope you're still enjoying the heron near you. Cheers, and keep up the good work. That's lovely, isn't it? We've talked about herons quite a lot on this show because, as you know, if you've been following this story of me starting a new show, basically this heron suddenly appeared very close to where I live. It is near the river, but I saw it one day completely out of the blue and just wondered how a heron in the middle of London was somehow, making it itself known. And then I looked up the sort of etymology, if you like, of herons, and it turns out that in many different cultures, and particularly in Native American culture, and particularly in other cultures around the world, Herons are a sign of good luck. They're a sign of new beginnings. They're a sign of a sort of reawakening. I'd hate to use the word renewal because that's one of Keir Starmer's words, but and then the heron reappeared. And the mother of my children made a lovely sort of message to say that maybe the heron had been sent to watch over me by my mother, who of course passed away a couple of years ago. So anything you've got about herons is always very, very welcome. If you spot any herons, give them to us, send them in. We also want to name the heron. So if you've got any suggestions as to what we should call my heron, the one that comes to visit me in London, I'd like you to send them in. And you can tweet them, of course, at IROMG. You can also send them in on the YouTube message board, which has gone crazy this morning. I mean, we had something like 1,800 messages in an hour on Saturday when we did a show with Russell Quirk. Russell Quirk very kindly came in to help us run through some of the technical difficulties. We had a few. Some of you complained that we had too many clocks, because we've got one sort of over. No, it's not over there. It's over there. There's that clock there, and there's another clock over here. No, it's over there. Why do I keep getting that wrong? I mean, you'd think after all these years, I'd know that I'm actually physically in reverse. But anyway, so we're going to get more clocks. We decided that clocks are definitely the thing. You can't have enough clocks. And a lot of people actually have been sending me lots of very funny memes. If you look over where the clock is actually on that side, I've done it again, that side. You'll see the plank famously is there, because this week we're going to film Plank of the Week with another cast of fantastically talented people, and we'll be putting that out, the real Plank of the Week, we might start calling it, which will go out 7 o'clock on Friday evening. Here's a super chat from Marco. Congrats, MG, 11,000. How do we shift lying libel, by the way? Well, I don't know is the straight answer, because you know as well as I do that I've been having a go at Keir Starmer pretty much ever since he became Prime Minister, because it was very clear to me from the very first week that he was in charge at Downing Street that he wasn't going to be doing a very good job. And then suddenly, of course, Southport happened. He started calling everybody far-right thugs. He started locking people up like Lucy Connolly for putting tweets out that people didn't like or that were considered to be something else. It's absolutely ridiculous. Here's another super chat from Mark, who says, keep calm, Mike Graham is on, and good morning from Newcastle upon Tyne. I bet it's cold up there. One from Dog's Body, wonderful to see you back. Good luck. Thank you very much indeed. Keep sending all these messages in. I'm going to do a few tweets actually now, but I'm going to be really revisiting Keir Starmer, because I'm going to do Plank of the Day, which we're going to do every single day, right? Because there is going to be one every single day. One here from Azura Fox. Loving the live show, Mike. The studio is awesome. It's so good to have you back live, and people are tuning in from around the world. Great numbers. Great to see Emma Wolf with you this morning as well. It's 2 a.m. in the USA, and I'm hooked. All the best, Mike, and a happy new year. M says, I think she's down in Bath, only a slight sprinkling of snow, but Mike Graham is back and mornings are all the better for it. Absolutely. Perry says, great to see you back at breakfast, MG, liking the new digs too, the home of common sense, except no substitutes. Steve says, 10k plus watching, keep challenging this atrocious UK Labour Party. Cheers, Mike. Good luck, Mike, says Angela Levin. She's going to be on the after show today talking about the royal family, because apart from anything else, apart from the Harry story, we've got to talk about the royal helicopters, because royal helicopters have apparently flown twice around the world in the last year, because they keep being used by people like Prince William, who's always banging on about how we should be green, and the Princess Royal. Most people quite like the Princess Royal because she works quite hard, but they're spending a hell of a lot of money flying around in helicopters when they don't need to. Angela Levin says, good luck, Mike. I need some laughter in this awful time. One from Welshman, who said, looking good, Mike and Emma Wolf. Hereward, the heron. What about that? That's quite a good name, actually. Hereward the heron, is that the right pronunciation? We're going to name the heron. Maybe we'll name him by the end of the show. A couple of people said, how about Henry the heron? Kate says, the set is a huge improvement. Thank you. A huge improvement on what? I wonder. I mean, the thing is, when we started in this studio, Pooch put it all together in double quick time. Fox the heron, initials of your show. Oh, I get that, yeah. How about Hieronymus Bosch? Says Abel Stringer. That's good. I like that. A little bit of a... my father introduced me to Hieronymus Bosch. I remember he took me to an art gallery once. Call the heron Donald, says Solaris. We've actually got a great message from my good friend Donald McLeod, which we're going to try and play out a little bit later on. We'll see if we can get to that. Paul says, I'll phone. Actually, by the way, for those of you who are wondering about how you can get in touch with us, we will be, because it's a kind of organic product, this. We've started it, first of all, in December the 1st. We started doing pre-recorded shows. We started kind of trying to get people back into the idea of watching Mike Graham at 7 in the morning. And we were really pleased with the results, because even though they were pre-recorded shows, they were quite well attended. People would tune in to watch them, and people would just say, look, it's not long enough, we need you back live. So we're back live. And so every day we're going to try and sort of, increase and augment the good things that we can do. So at the moment, we're concentrating an awful lot on the YouTube feed, an awful lot on getting that right, and making sure that Harmer the Heron, yeah, that's nice, as in Harmer the Starmer, or Starmer the Harmer, that's from Stephen. So we're going to concentrate on getting the YouTube feed right, getting all of that sort of, getting all the volume levels right, getting all the microphones right. The UK is falling apart, and we're talking about herons, says Esmeralda. Yeah, well, we're also talking about the UK falling apart, but maybe, just maybe, right, the sign of the heron is a sign of good things to come, and maybe the sign of the heron is an encouraging sign. So we're not just talking about herons, we're talking about everything, because that's what we do here. But we try and keep a smile on our faces as well, because there isn't any other show at this time of the day where you can have as much of a laugh as you can with me. And we're going to do, as I say, plank of the day in a minute. But here's the thing. So we're going to bring in voice notes. We're going to bring in telephone calls. We're going to do all the things, and we'll probably end up expanding the show for more than 2 hours as well. But don't forget, we're also going to be doing lots of other shows. We're going to be doing an after show every single day, which will be free to those people who subscribe on Substack, and that will be sort of a longer form interview with somebody interesting every single day. We've got all that lined up. We've got some great guests lined up for the whole week. We'll be bringing you the papers, and in fact, why don't we do that now? What we should really do is go have a quick look through the papers and tell you precisely what is on the front pages, because I've got them all basically here. Where are we? Let's have a look. Recent days. What is going on? No, that's no good. Yeah, here we go. So let's start with the Daily Express. Their headline says, fears Starmer is plotting a full-blown Brexit betrayal. And that was what we were talking about with Mark Littlewood. Basically, yesterday, he was interviewed by Laura Kunsberg, and he's been accused of betraying Brexit by edging ever closer to the EU single market. Richard Tice warned, when the Prime Minister admits that he is looking at multiple ways for Britain to get closer to the EU, Brits will be rightly worried that a full-blown betrayal is in the works. They've also got a picture of Camilla, the Queen, on the front page as well. Daily Mail goes with a picture of Maduro on the front page, and Prime Minister faces revolt by Labour's Maduro apologists. And that's because, of course, all the lefties in the Labour Party think that Donald Trump has broken international law, and that Keir Starmer, rather than sitting there going, we have to wait for all the facts before we know what we're doing, should actually condemn it, and should actually say it's not something that should be done. Because we've also got in other papers a story, for example, on the front page of the Daily Telegraph, Donald Trump's now setting his sights on Greenland. President says the US needs Danish territory for defence against China and Russia. The Danes are not too happy about that, and the people of Greenland are even less happy. One story that we haven't really touched upon, but we should do, and maybe I'll do it with Jamie Jenkins when he's here shortly. Dozens of mentally ill offenders, mental patients basically, have gone on to kill after being secretly released. Oh, this is good, isn't it? So in addition to all of the madness going on with migrants getting involved in all manner of crimes when they come to this country and get put up in hotels, we've now got people, at least 30 dangerous mental health patients who were secretly freed from high security hospitals, have gone on to kill in recent years. This is a Telegraph story that they've managed to get their hands on. Around 250 violent offenders are detained in institutions like Broadmoor, Rampton and Ashworth each year, when courts decide that they're too crazy and mentally ill to go to prison. One of these was the Nottingham killer, Valdo Calacane, and of course the family of the victims in that particular horrible attack basically have said, we're very worried, because the fact of the matter is, no matter what the Home Office says, no matter what the Ministry of Justice says, if you lock people up in mental institutions, there can come a point at which they get released. And Valdo Calacane has already been diagnosed as a schizophrenic and far too dangerous to release. But what we do know is that people have been released in the past and have then gone on to kill again. And that just simply should not happen. It's absolutely... Yeah, I'll get to it. A couple more stories to come to with you on the front pages. Jamie Jenkins about to join us, of course, as well. The Sun goes with AJ's pledge to the families of brothers. That's Anthony Joshua, who's back in Britain, grief-stricken boxer, among hundreds yesterday at the London funeral of 36-year-olds Sina Gami and Latif Ayodele. I mean, what a terrible crash that was, and how incredible and how lucky must he be feeling, Anthony Joshua, because apparently he switched seats in the car that he was in literally a few minutes before it crashed. And if he'd stayed on the side away from the driver's side, he would have been dead. Absolutely extraordinary stuff. Anyway, listen, we'll come back to the front pages as well, and we'll bring more of you and more of your messages through. HRH, his royal heron, says Marie. Call the heron Jeremy. Well, I don't think it really goes, does it? Good luck to Jeremy, by the way. Is the heron a boy or a girl? Says Creswell. Eos, Greek god for the dawn, for rebirth, says Wonder Wender. Honda. Well, that's interesting. Eos, I quite like that name. I don't know. So far, I'm liking Hieronymus. What about Mercury, the messenger god for the heron, says Andrew. Well, you see, people say, well, we're talking about herons when the world's falling apart. Well, people like talking about stuff like that because it's what's part of the human condition, after all. Heron Mirren. That's very good. I like that. We'll come back to it, and maybe we'll decide. We'll write down all the best ones. I like Hieronymus actually. That's what I'm thinking about for the moment. But Heron Mirren, very good. Let's talk to Jamie Jenkins, though, our favourite statistician. Of course, the man of the moment. He's down there in South Wales. What's the weather like down there, Jamie? Good morning to you.
Oh, it's freezing down here, Mike. Perhaps you've got your Welsh. Well, you're trying to get your Welsh newsreader. I can be a Welsh weather reporter every morning if you want. If I can try and cold snaps across the country, Mike. Big kind of freeze coming down from the Arctic Circle. Yes, absolutely freezing down here. Not as bad as Scotland though, but yeah, the only thing we need freezing over this country, Mike, is Keir Starmer. I think that's the only thing we really need.
Well, I mean, he's managed to freeze the economy, hasn't he, and sort of make it go down the gurgler. I mean, the economy feels like it's sort of like when you get frozen pipes in your house and you're just waiting for something to flood. You know it's going to get worse between now and the next 6 months.
Yeah, but the only one good thing he's not freezing, Mike. Got to give you a big shout out for your first show. Maybe you're the heroine of coming back to morning breakfast shows. That's what we needed, Mike. But the boats are going up. We're going to talk about that, the numbers on the boats. But good to see your subscribers are going up as well, Mike. So great to see you back. I know loads of people have been asking me, where's Mike Graham? So it's good to have you back every single morning on the new home of common sense. Great to see you, Mike.
Yeah, we're delighted. 11,000 people have been watching now for probably about a good half an hour, which is a massive number to be watching live. And it's not anything that we even expected to be that good on day one. But we're very, very delighted to have it. We're getting some great messages. It's so good. Let's talk about some of the stuff that you've been writing about, though, recently, because, of course, we've been looking at the numbers on the small boats front. I mean, there's a story today in the paper saying that from today, every migrant that comes across the channel will have their phones confiscated, taken off them, without having to be arrested first. And I thought to myself, well, hang on. So they're already now expecting people to come this week, even though it's freezing cold. They're already expecting them to arrive with phones. I mean, it's a record number that came in 2025. I think 2026 is actually going to be worse.
Yeah, so the only thing we do know is the numbers keep going up. So if we just have a quick snapshot to 2025, Mike, so the year's closed, 41,742 came across. It was up 13% on the year before. 2022 was actually higher, but then we started obviously trying to get a grip on this. There was talk of the Rwanda deal, numbers started coming down. Starmer's come in and the numbers have gone up. And what it means, Mike, more boats, more spending for the taxpayer, forecast around £4.9 billion in terms of the total cost of the asylum system. And what does that mean? 600,000 people are getting out of bed this morning to pay income tax and national insurance for a full year to pay for the asylum seekers. Absolutely shocking. Now, what's the running total? So you got that totalizer going up, 192,000 now, 610 since 2018. And I'm with you, you know, unless you've got a clear deterrent to sort this mess out, it's not going to stop. And where are people coming from? People ask me, you know, you talk about the numbers, where are they coming from? So since 2018, the top 5 nationalities are Iran, Afghanistan, Iraq, Eritrea, and Somalia. You know, are these the countries we want to be integrating into society? They're coming over illegally, Mike. You know, they shouldn't have these phones. You was talking with them earlier on, when you know, the people throw the phones over the kind of over the boat, in terms of stuff, in terms of what they're doing. So we can't have this going on, Mike. And remember, months ago we were talking about this. The 1 in, 1 out deal was supposed to fix this problem. Well, we had a minister on a couple of weeks ago talking about the figures, Mike. 193 have been sent over to France. 195 have come in. So it doesn't stop the numbers going down. We've even taken more in, Mike. So absolutely shocking. It's just, it's bonkers, Mike. You know, what can we do to sort this out?
I know. And to go back to Keir Starmer's interview with Laura Kunsberg, we talked about with Amber Wolf a bit earlier, you know, she raised the issue of the migrant hotels for a start, because, you know, first of all, she said, asked him about smashing the gangs and was like, well, you haven't really smashed the gangs, have you? And his answer was so useless. You know, he didn't say, anything about why they hadn't smashed the gangs. He talks about how, oh, well, we've got fewer people in migrant hotels now than we did have. And the reason there were so many in there was because the last government wasn't actually processing their asylum claims. Oh, great. So now we're processing their asylum claims and putting them in houses of multiple occupancy. That's not really an improvement, is it?
No, we did see, Mike, the numbers going in hotels have gone up, I think, in the recent figures. He doesn't talk about smashing the gangs anymore because the only thing he's doing is smashing records with all of these figures, Mike. It's absolute nuts in terms of what he's doing. You know, the numbers are going up. We've got to get a grip on it. And I don't think he's got any actual plan to sort this out. And the digital ID, we'll probably talk about that in a second, Mike. But everything Starmer talks about, whenever he mentions something, public support for it collapses. When he says he's going to smash the gangs, he can't smash anything. I don't know what Starmer can actually do in this country, Mike, other than kind of mess up even more in 2026. It's a new year. It's not going to be a happy new year for us. The only good thing, I wrote another thing this morning, Mike, that in Wales, the Welsh Labour have collapsed. They're going to be kicked out of power. You've talked about the elections this year. They want to cancel the elections because they know that they're going to get kicked out of these little seats and the Tories in the same place, Mike. So ultimately, 2026 is going to be a political earthquake in Wales, in Scotland, and in the local areas where elections are going to get taken. And that's why they want him out, Mike, because they know there's no support for Starmer. And basically, the country needs change.
Yeah. I mean, if you were a psychologist watching that interview yesterday, you'd go, this bloke is suffering not only from delusions, he's actually, you know, mentally incapable of understanding the situation that he's in because he had no grip on reality whatsoever. You know, he was sort of smiling and saying, I'll still be here in 2027. You know, I'll come back and do another big long form interview with you. I mean, he spoke as though he was in a good position as opposed to being, one, the most unpopular prime minister that there has ever been, and two, so unpopular that even his own party don't want him there, and three, so useless that he can't actually make anything work. The economy's down the gurgler. We're learning today, this morning, about a zombie apocalypse. He wants to introduce digital ID. You've been writing about that, saying that more Britons now oppose digital ID ever since he decided to be in favour of it.
Yeah, so the one thing with Starmer, Mike, as soon as he supports something, collapse goes down. So if Starmer came out tomorrow and offered kind of free tea and biscuits to everybody, you'd probably see a massive spike in coffee sales. That's the only thing that happens with Starmer. He supports it, collapse goes down. So YouGov have been tracking kind of ID card support for ID overall now since around 2019. And what we've tended to see more support for ID cards than against, basically. But since Starmer's announced this policy, it's actually gone the other way. And it was probably a vague idea, which is why people were supporting it back in the time. But he's come in, people are more and more aware of this now. And don't forget, where's this come from? The Tony Blair Institute have been pushing it. This was not in the manifesto. There's no mandate for this. And we've seen about massive public backlash. It's a 1.8 billion cost to the taxpayer. Will it be 1.8 billion? Will it, hell, Mike? It's going to go up. You know, no IT contracts delivered on budget. We had a whistleblower on ITV a few weeks back saying, you know, the security risk, this is going to get hacked. I wouldn't want all my data there. So the public are having this massive backlash, Mike. You know, I've been busy writing about this on my website, statsjamie.co.uk, over the last couple of weeks. And I think the more people understand what this means, the more important this is because what's surprising, Mike, when you look at the public support, people who voted Tories, people who voted Lib Dems, and people who voted Labour at the last election, when you look at the poll, they actually still support ID cards more than are against. The people who are against ID cards are those who didn't vote in the last election. So what we need to do, Mike, and it's good, I imagine many of them are watching your show this morning, people who don't vote, if you're fed up with this country, if you're fed up with these politicians, in the next election, you get out, register to vote, and go and vote against this nonsense that we're having.
Yeah. And I mean, one of the things about digital ID, another story that we haven't actually mentioned yet this morning, but it's in the Times on page 19. It's quite an interesting one. You're a parent, I think I'm right in saying. It says here that tracking kids, which an awful lot of parents do, actually causes them to be anxious, causes them to have anxiety. This is a group of 74 psychologists, doctors, nurses, and health professionals have urged parents who use electronic devices to track their children to rethink it. And of course, you know, being a parent myself, once your kids are old enough to have a mobile phone, you certainly get an awful lot of mothers, probably more than fathers, who want to keep track of where the kids are going and where they are, sometimes without their knowledge. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I think sometimes it depends on the age of the child. Mike, you tend to find now that more and more younger children are getting mobile phones. If whether that's a good or a bad thing, that's another debate. But it can have its help in terms of when you need to pick somebody up or you're wondering where they are. But you do need to get to a point where you've got to kind of cut the umbilical cord off your child. I hear stories, Mike, where the child's in their 20s and the parents are still tracking them. Are they in that nightclub 3 o'clock in the morning, or what do they do around that girl's house? That kind of thing. Just we've got to be cutting the umbilical cord off there. But ultimately, Mike, coming back to the digital ID thing, the bonkers thing with that as well, Mike, is that the thing that I was surprised when I looked at the figures, younger people are, and you talk about young people here, younger people are the ones who most oppose the digital ID cards. So they're the ones who are most awake, I think, in terms of this policy. Older people, where it probably impacts them more because of the fact you're going to need a smartphone, the digital infrastructure and all that, they're actually the ones who support things. But the cohort of youngest people in the population, they're the ones who are against this. And they tend to be the ones who would normally migrate towards supporting Labour. So again, another complete backlash against Starmer, Mike. I don't think he's going to go anywhere in the right direction this year. You talk about him saying he's going to be here in 2027. If any balls, Mike, he'd come on your show and have a chat with you. I'm sure Kemi Badenoch, Nigel Farage, if you invited them on the show, they'd be here, Mike. Would Keir Starmer, did he ever talk to you on your last show? I don't think he ever did he?
No, in fact, when worse than that, it was always the only communication we ever got from Downing Street was that their sort of press team would say they didn't like the fact that I kept calling him a liar. So I stopped calling him a liar, and instead, every time I got a guest on, I'd ask them if they thought he was a liar, and they'd always say yes. And in fact, I got Kerry Badenoch on once, and I said, "Do you think Keir Starmer's a liar?" And she said, "Absolutely." She didn't even hesitate. Everybody knows that he doesn't just come across as disingenuous. He doesn't just come across as a guy who's out of touch with the electorate. He actually tells lies. He must know he's lying when he's doing it, because again, he started talking about 5 million extra appointments on the NHS. We found out at the weekend, or last weekend actually, that more and more people are waiting longer and longer to see a GP under Labour than they were under the Conservatives. And I'm not saying the Tories were great, but this lot are worse because they tell lies about what they're doing. There aren't 5 million more appointments. People are being given appointments and then having them cancelled. They're not seeing any doctors. They're not seeing any, they're not seeing any surgeons. They're just not seeing anyone.
No, and you talk about lies. I think over the weekend, because the government always wheels out somebody different, don't they? I think they had Darren Jones out again. I think that's his name. Yeah, Darren Jones. He's part of the Prime Minister's office now. But last year, Mike, he was on Question Time. I think Zia Youssef was sat next to him, and they were talking about small boats. It was a special thing talking about one of the questions came out on the small boats, and he went on television and he said the vast majority of people coming over on these boats are women and children, which is an absolute lie. I think. Fiona Bruce actually asked him, "Is that true?" And he said, "Yes, it is." And Zia Youssef was calling him out. So again, since 2018, Mike, going back to the boats talks of Labour lies, 85% of all the people who are coming over are being male. 85% of them are adults. So that's another lie as well. So it's not just Starmer that tells lies. All we seem to have, every morning I'm assuming the Labour machine puts out a load of lines for the politicians who are doing all the media rounds, and there's just absolute nonsense in there, day after day after day. The public is seeing through it, Mike. It's great to have shows like yourself calling this out as well, because some shows, in the morning when we're doing this nonsense, it's bonkers what we get being told, Mike. And that's why support for Starmer's tanked in the polls. I can see him staying until 2027 because nobody will kick him out of the Labour Party because there's no real strong mechanism to do it. He's not going to resign because his political career is over if he did. And the only thing we need with a one in, one out is Starmer out and a new one in, mate. That's the only thing we're going to get.
Yeah, that's the best idea I've heard all morning. Actually, I've forgotten something I would normally be doing quite a lot. And this message timed at 8:31 because it used to be about 8 o'clock that Starmer would put out his first lie of the day. We've just hit 12,000 people watching, by the way, which is absolutely extraordinary. Thank you to all of you who have joined in. Keep sending us your messages, keep sending us your super chats. But here's Keir Starmer's first tweet of the day, sent out 25 minutes ago at 8:05, because of course Parliament's back today. So his first lie of the day is this: this year you will start to feel our promise of change. £150 off the average energy bill from April. Absolute rubbish. Your public services will be improved. No, they won't. Your community will see more funding, restoring local pride. Well, they might do that because they love giving our money to people that don't deserve it. We are getting Britain back on track. No, you're not. I mean, there's nothing in that statement that is in any way factual. There's nothing in that statement which refers to any detail. It's all just nebulous rubbish.
Oh yeah, it just worries me. If Britain's getting back on track, it must be like an episode of Thomas the Tank Engine because we've been derailed in the last 18 months, Mike. It's just the words he's talking about. The economy is basically going nowhere. Unemployment's going up. People on payroll jobs going down. Hospitality's been decimated. People can't afford to go out, which is going to make things even worse. Borrowing is off the scale in terms of where we've got. All the figures are going in the wrong direction. Obviously, your subscribers are going in the right direction, Mike. That's a good number. But all the economic figures are going in the wrong direction. And to put that out, people want some kind of hope for the year. The one thing that all they've done, I think they've taken some of these green levies off of the your energy bill. But the reason the energy bill is, it's nowhere near what it was in 2019. Gas prices have come down significantly since then. The energy prices went up quite a lot as well because of the COVID lockdowns. We shut the world down pretty much. Then we started opening the world quite quickly. Couldn't get the energy infrastructure in place in time. That was a big factor in that. And the UK has some of the biggest, if not the largest, energy prices for businesses in the whole world. And then that gets put onto your bill because if everything generally uses energy to make things. So if you want to get the cost of living down, Mike, you've got energy down. Knocking 150 quid off energy bills for households is obviously it's a little bit of a help taking those green levies off, but it's not.
Yeah, but it won't happen.
Well, it doesn't solve the main root cause of this, Mike.
Because everything they say they're going to bring down in price, it doesn't happen.
No, food prices keep going up, Mike. Inflation is higher here than what we've got in comparable countries in Europe, and some of the reason for that as well, Mike. Labour's jobs tax. They put the jobs tax in place. That gets added onto the bill of the employer. What do? They have to put it onto the prices that we pay. All the things that Labour does are having a negative effect. And all the things that are positive that they say they were going to do, they've done a U-turn because they backbenchers won't allow them to do it. That's the problem, Mike. It's just a government in paralysis. And it's great to see you talk about that.
It's absolutely incredible. And one final question for you. We're back to Parliament, back in Westminster for the first week of the year. Any big stats coming out this week that we should be looking at?
No, it's a quiet week, I think, Mike, on the stats front. I think I'll get back on the show with you next week because we'll start getting that steady stream of what's the latest figures on the economy, what's the latest employment figures, inflation figures. So I think we'll be having a busy week in the next couple of weeks, Mike. Is it going to be Happy New Year for Rachel Reeves? I very much doubt it.
Richard III, my God. It's time for Richard IV, I think, isn't it? By the way, some great names for the Heron coming in. A lot of people saying Heron Mirren is definitely the winner, which it might well be. We had Eva Heron as well, which I rather liked. Super chat from Kat. How about Lord Hieronymus? That's quite nice. I quite like that. One from Elaine who says, Zen the Heron? He calms us all in all this nonsense. I think that's the point, isn't it? One from John195. Is it too early for some English bubbly? Well, do you know what? We're actually thinking about incorporating, perhaps on Friday, a little bit of bubbly tasting, because that's a good idea. I'm an American, says, who is this? Ashley. I'm an American, but I love your shows. You have common sense and speak your mind. I love your Plank of the Week show, so please keep it. I wish you all the luck from America, and congrats on your YouTube plaque. We've now got 12,000 people watching. This is an all-time record, ladies and gentlemen. I can't thank you all enough. Hero the Heron, Happy New Year, says Hev. Very nice. Coming up next, right here on the Mike Graham Show, the first ever live Mike Graham breakfast show, we're going to have Edward Hughes with the news.
There are amber alerts for snow and ice across parts of Scotland and other regions, prompting flight cancellations, travel disruption, and school closures as commuters face difficult conditions. In politics, Prime Minister Keir Starmer warned that efforts to remove him mid-term would plunge the country into chaos as Parliament resumes business this week, with key Home Office questions scheduled in the Commons. On the economy, HSBC became the first major lender to cut mortgage rates after the Bank of England's recent base rate reduction, offering potential relief for homeowners. Didn't Richard III work for HSBC? Meanwhile, economists warn UK unemployment could rise to an 11-year high in 2026 amid weak private sector activity and cost pressures. Elsewhere, life-saving efforts continue after a teenage girl and her mother were swept out to sea by a freak wave. And in entertainment, TV highlights include the long-awaited return of Inspector Linley this evening.
That's Edward Hughes with the news. He's the top man. I hope he's not texting anyone while he's reading the news, by the way, because that's absolutely not allowed on the Mike Graham show. You've got to be very serious. But how does he know about Richard III? That'll be my question. But we'll hear more from Edward Hughes, the newsman, because he's going to be with us every single show. He's going to read the news out at 8:30, at 8 o'clock, and at 7:30 as well. He's a little bit late because it's 8:37 right now. So I'm so pleased as well to see so many people listening as well as watching, because a lot of people have asked the question, can I watch you on YouTube? Yes, but what if I'm out in the car? Can I listen? So if anybody's got any thoughts on all of that, do join in the chat. Please, either on Twitter or on Facebook, or indeed on the YouTube feed, which I want you to like and subscribe to as well, please. Just keep pushing those subscription numbers up, because we know an awful lot of you are watching, but you haven't subscribed. It doesn't cost you any money. You can just subscribe, and it just pushes up everything in our favour. So that would be brilliant. But if you've got any thoughts or clues as to how people can listen, who can't watch because either they're driving a car or they're out walking the dog, by all means let them know, and they'll learn how to use it. Coming up in a little while, Intel Lady is going to join us. She, of course, is the wonderful, fantastic impressionist who does not only Richard III, but also does Angela Rayner, and also does Bridget Phillipson. All of these horrible, ghastly Labour women who are making everybody's lives a misery. Coming up next, though, we got Plank of the Day. And as I often say, even though there's an awful lot of it about, do not be a plank. And I'm going to have to go back to basics this morning with Plank of the Day, because quite frankly, there is only one candidate, and I'm afraid it's the Prime Minister. Because the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, gave an interview, a long-form interview to Laura Kuenssberg yesterday from the BBC. The BBC made a great deal of it. They said it was, the first time the Prime Minister agreed to do such a lengthy interview, and it went on for about, 45 minutes or so. They had Grant Shapps afterwards critiquing it, saying basically he said nothing of any interest whatsoever, and he can't really help himself, even though he said he thinks he's still going to be Prime Minister in 2027. He's going to come back and do another interview, even though he said that they were proud of what they'd done, even though he said we're turning a corner, people are going to start feeling richer in 2026. I don't know where he gets any of it from, but perhaps some of the most offensive garbage that he came out with was about his definition of what being British was about. And also when he started talking about wanting to rejoin in some way, shape or form the European Union. I mean, he says he doesn't want to rejoin it, but it certainly sounds like he does. But have a look at this. This is a part of the interview that we've picked out for you. We don't need you to watch it all because we watch it for you. It was an hour of my life that I'll never get back. Check this out.
The next election is going to be unlike any election we've seen in this country for a very, very long time, because my strong view is it'll be a Labour government up against a very right-wing proposition in reform. And that reform proposition will be a proposition of toxic divide of this country. The next election is going to be about a question of what is it to be British? Mm-hmm. And I believe to be British is to be compassionate, reasonable, live and let live, and diverse. And I am proud to serve our diverse country and all of its parts. It is British to be diverse. And that is the essence of Britishness. That will be challenged at the next election by reform. And this country, if reform wins, will be torn apart in a toxic way. And my strong sense of history tells me that if a right-wing proposition like that gets in with that toxic divide, and things don't go the way they pretend they will, and they won't, they will move to the right, to the right, to the right. You can see this happening across Europe. This is happening. You can see the right-wing propositions in Germany, in France. If you look at the elections of this year, even in Norway, in the Netherlands, in Australia, and in Canada, it's been a fight between the moderates and a right-wing proposition. That is what we're up against. That is the fight of our times. I intend to lead us into that fight. What I don't think will help us is if a Labour government turns into or turns back to the chaos of the last Tory government. That would gift Nigel Farage. We need to be clear. We need to turn the corner. As we're turning the corner, we need to stop the drift in this country. We need to shoot down this idea that slogans, easy answers, quick fixes, shortcuts are what fixed the country. They didn't fix it. Johnson pretended to drive a bulldozer through a wall, pretending that would get you £350 for the NHS. It didn't happen. Farage pretended leaving that the EU meant you would reduce your immigration. The opposite happened. Liz Truss pretended that if you ignored all the financial institutions, you could build the economy. Everybody paid the price. We're not going back to that. That's the last thing this country needs.
Yeah, well, I mean, he talks as though something good is actually coming out of this Labour government, right? Which it isn't. It clearly is not. And that's why he's my plank of the day, because on the front page of the Times today, it's got ousting me would be a gift for Farage, according to Keir Starmer. He says you've got to keep him in place, even though he's completely and utterly useless, because otherwise Nigel Farage will get in. Well, there's a reason Nigel Farage is leading in the polls. There's a reason why Reform is leading in the polls. It's because people want Reform to be the next government. It's as simple as that. You know, there are a few refusenicks who've come out of the Reform Party and gone into other parties because they don't like Nigel Farage's style. But let's face it, there's only really one game in town. If you want to oust the Labour government, it's not the Tories. And I don't necessarily go along with Dominic Cummings when he said what he said at the weekend, that the Tories are dead and buried and they're not coming back. And Kemi Badenoch's finished and Robert Jenrick's going to come in, but nobody's going to care because there's just not any appetite for putting the Tories back into power. And I think that part of what he said is probably correct. But at the end of the day, there is literally no chance for any other party other than Reform to push Starmer and the Labour government out of office. It's got to be done. But more worryingly, and I've spoke about this a bit earlier with Mark Littlewood, the economist, of course, from Popular Conservatism, Starmer wants to build on agreements over food standards and agriculture as part of his reset with the European Union. Britain is looking at mutual recognition of professional qualifications and reducing barriers for touring artists alongside participating in the bloc's internal market on electricity. And when he was asked by Laura Kunsberg exactly what that all meant, he couldn't really give an answer because he didn't really know. And there he is. I mean, plank of the day, you have to look no further than Keir Starmer, because he literally is the most idiotic, useless politician that anybody has ever seen. He can't even decide whether Donald Trump has broken international law, and he's meant to be a human rights lawyer. I have to wait for all the facts before I can make a judgment, is what he said to her. I mean, just get lost, for heaven's sake, go away. Coming up, we're going to do some more super chats. We'll do some more tweets that you've sent in as well. We've got so many great responses today. 12,000 plus people now watching live, which is a world record, I think, for a first show that anybody's ever done on YouTube in this country anyway. So I'm very grateful for all of that. Don't forget to please like and subscribe, though, to the YouTube channel, because we've got 120,000 subscribers already, but what we'd like to do is push that up to 200,000, and it doesn't cost any money. You just have to subscribe, and then you can of course take part in all the chats. You can take part in getting your name put up in lights. Pooch will put your name up on the screen, and you'll be famous, even if it's only for one day. A lot of people saying Helen Mirren basically is the winner. I'm sort of tempted to go with that. And one suggested even saying it with a Japanese accent, but I mean, that would be wrong, wouldn't it? Coming up as well, next, after this, Intel Lady is going to join us. We'll get her view on what's going to happen in the new year with the likes of Angela Rayner, who still wants to become the Prime Minister, and Bridget Phillipson, who's up there in the northeast trying to ruin every single school in Britain. Good luck with that. This is, of course, the Mike Graham Show. It's coming up to 8:45. We're here till 9 o'clock. And then if you want to see the after show, go and sign up to our Substack as well. That's going to be a go round on the royal family, who have not only now got to put up with Harry, because he's just won the right, we believe, to get the security detail that he's been asking for years and years and years and years. Can you imagine Meghan? Harry, we have to go to London. I don't want to go to London. I thought you said we'd never have to go to London. Well, now he's going to have to bring her because he's going to get the security detail he's been asking for. So he's got no excuse. Angela Levin is going to join us after 9 o'clock, and we'll hear her take on that. Plus, the royal helicopters. They've been flying an awful lot of royal family members around Britain, and it's costing us quite a few quid. It's all coming up next.
The Conservatives are now the party of high tax. On their watch, the tax burden is the highest in 70 years. I worked as an economist at the Bank of England before entering politics. I know what it takes to run a successful economy.
I know what it takes to run a successful economy. Really? How? Doesn't look like you've got one. This is a good one from Luce. He says, "Why don't you call the heron Richard the Bird?" That's great. That's really good, Richard the Bird. Speaking of which, let's talk to Intel Lady, the greatest impressionist of all time, who I'm not sure if you've come on as Angela Rayner, Intel Lady, known as obviously Jen for real people. Very good morning to you. Well, Happy New Year and welcome to the first ever Mike Graham Show.
Happy New Year, Mike. Nice to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, listen, we've got lots to talk about because Richard III, Rachel Reeves, is still in position. Angela Rayner plotting now to try and take over from Keir Starmer. What sort of Christmas and New Year do you think Angela?
Well, I've had a very productive Christmas. Thank you very much. I necked a few tins. That was good. But I mean, the year ahead, I'm very excited, Mike. Very, very excited with what's to come. I can't say too much, but no, I can. I'm writing a book. You know about my book. I have been very, very busy preparing. I've sharpened all of my crayons. I cannot wait to get started with it.
Now, you're lucky as well because, you know, some people in the Labour Party, like Richard III, Rachel Reeves, when she wrote a book, she was accused of nicking all the ideas from somebody else and plagiarising it from somebody else's book. You're not going to do that, Angela.
No way. No, there'll be no. It is heartfelt. It is very honest because I am a very honest person. It is about my beginnings as a working class hero. That's what they call me in us Labours. They call me the working class hero. So it is just going to be very gritty. It's going to be a very gritty, fantastic book about how I worked my way up from a working class background because it don't get said enough, I am from a working class background and I worked my way up to the front bench.
Yeah, but then of course it all went wrong because you had a bit of a trouble with understanding what tax was and how much tax you should be paying. Council tax, stamp duty.
That was not my fault. That was not my fault. I had some dodgy advice. We've been through this, Mike. I don't know how many times I have to tell people. And I want to move on from it, but people just don't want to move on from it. That money will get paid, Mike. It will defo at some point be paid when I'm ready to, when I'm in the right position to. Look, it's going to get, when I've sold enough books, that money is defo getting paid. So I wish people would just move on.
Okay. Brilliant. What about Keir Starmer? Are you still mates with him?
Yeah, I absolutely love him. What a cracking job he is doing. He really is. Just everyone loves him. He's the most popular PM we've ever had, doing a cracking job, and we are defo brilliant mates.
Now, I see behind you, there's a hook on the wall there.
Well, I don't really. I didn't hear the rest of that question, Mike. But there is an hook on the wall behind me. You're quite right, and I am hooked on what is going on in this country right now. Can we just talk about a few things that us Labourers are going to be putting through, signing in as bills, very, very important bills. We're putting a bill through hopefully in the next few weeks, called the What Would Olivia Coleman Do bill. And that is a bill where we make sure that before we make any major decisions and put things as our top priority, that we consult all of the very important celebrities before we do so. And I think that's going to be a very popular bill.
Yeah, that's good because they made so many good comments, didn't they, about that Egyptian terrorist guy when he was being held in an Egyptian prison, and they all said what a lovely man he was. And your mate Keir, of course, said he was delighted to be bringing him back to the UK, even though he wants to kill us.
I think you've been a bit unkind and you're misrepresenting the poor lad. He's been through a lot. When he said those things, he was about 30 years old. And I mean, who hasn't said daft things when they was as young as 30? Apart from Farage, he's the exception. But everyone else, when you're 30 years old and 28 and, 25, you do say daft things about, wanting to off people and all the people that you hate that are from marginalised communities and all of that. You do say things like, it's just normal. It is the normal. And Mike, he was under a lot of pressure, was that lad. He was, you know, he was feeling stressed and worried about things like we all do from time to time. And sometimes you just say stuff, don't you? And we can forgive that because we're a very forgiving people. We're a very forgiving nation, even when people come here who might want to, you know, kill us. So there you go. We are a forgiving people. And it was the right thing to bring him and his entire family over here and keep them nice and safe. I think that's it. Safety is our priority. So there you go. There you go.
I can see that. How's your other mate, Bridget Phillipson, old year in back end of 2025? You know, she seems to be very busy trying to ruin the education system in this country. Have you got high hopes for her coming up in the new year?
She's not ruining anything. She's done a lot of good as our Bridget. Do you want to have a word with? I can get her for you because we were just having a brew. Do you want me to get Bridget for you? I can go and grab her.
I'd like to talk to Bridget, please. Yeah, because she's an important part of what we're asking about this morning.
Right, I'll go and grab her for you. Hang on, stay there. Don't go anywhere.
Won't go anywhere. We're talking, of course, to Angela Rayner, in the guise of Intel Lady, who's on Twitter. Fantastic woman, very funny. She's just going to get Bridget Phillipson for us. She might have a bit of trouble getting her out of the kitchen where she's making the tea at the moment. Should we have a couple of messages in the meantime? I've got some tweets here that I can do as well, because so many of you, 12,000 of you now, have been watching the show for quite some time. It really is quite an extraordinary number. We're very, very happy. Apparently being British is about being diverse. Heaven's sake. Here's one from Diana. Great to see you and Emma Wolf back. Fantastic show. Onwards and upwards. Very, very good to see. So it's all going terribly well. Loving the show, Mike. The idea of wine tastings is great. James Max used to have a Friday slot doing that on his show before he was ousted by Talk. It was great. He used to have Elton Mooner with him. Yeah, I remember him. He was a bit of an odd character. Oh, look, Bridget Phillipson's here. Bridget, very good morning to you. Loving the...
Good morning, Mike. It's very good to see yous. I've been very busy at the moment. I don't know what your question was actually, because it got cut off. But I just wanted to say that I have been very busy this morning. I have been at a primary school in southeast London, and we are currently getting everything ready for the free breakfast clubs that us Labours have implemented on the taxpayer. And I think it's a cracking idea, and we've got a whole bunch of very happy children ready to learn for tomorrow. Most of them are going in tomorrow, and we are very excited to see them all getting fed and ready to learn.
And when you go to one of these free breakfast clubs, what do you have? What do you get for breakfast?
Well, there's a whole different array of fantastic options you can have. A little bit of toast, or a bit of yogurt, or maybe some cereals and Weetabix. You like your Weetabix, don't you?
Can't have more than two, can you?
Well, it's not advisable. We're trying to encourage healthy eating as well, of course.
Yeah. So what, you can't have a bacon and egg sandwich or anything like that?
Well, a lot of the schools don't have the resources to heat things up, and we're trying to keep it on the cheap. 66 pence per child is the budget, so it's going to work out.
That's about exactly how much it costs to pay for the royal family, isn't it? 66 pence.
I think you'll find that educating and feeding our children is a lot more important than the royal family.
Well, what have you got planned for the rest of the year? Because Keir Starmer, your boss, was on TV yesterday promising that we're all going to get richer soon. When do you reckon I'm going to get richer?
Well, to be honest with you, Mike, I don't really care about whether you're getting rich or not. I care about children and people. We have been working so hard. We have managed to close down all of those pointless, snotty-nosed schools, and now we have pushed all of the children from the snotty-nosed schools into the state schools. And it's a lot more of a cosy environment for them to be in at the moment. Everyone's very happy with that. We're just hoping that we can get a few more teachers on board, but I've got my work cut out for us because there's a lot to do.
There is a lot to do, and we're nearly out of time. So we're going to say, Bridget, thank you very much indeed for spending some time with us. I hope you're pleased to be back in Westminster, back in London, where everything costs a lot more money. And we'll look forward to seeing you in the coming weeks.
Thank you very much.
Bridget Phillipson from Land up in the northeast, ruining the school systems one school at a time. Brilliant, isn't it? Coming up, we're going to be doing some more super chats. We're going to find out what the name of the heron is going to finally be. You've got your last chance to put some messages in. We'll do some more tweets as well, because you can find us, of course, at IROMG. You can find us on Facebook, or you can just join in the YouTube chat, which has been going on now since just before 8 o'clock. So many of you were ready, before 7 actually, so many of you were ready before the show started. It's been an absolute delight. We're almost at the end of the show, but it's been absolutely brilliant. And I can't thank all of you enough for making this the most popular breakfast show currently on the air. So thank you so much again. And don't forget, coming up after the news with Edward Hughes, we're going to have the after show, the first after show of all time, which will go out to people who subscribe to the Substack. But please do remember to like the channel, the YouTube channel, and please do subscribe. So we want to get those numbers up as best we can. It won't cost you any money, but it will just give our numbers an even bigger and better look. This, of course, is the real home of common sense. I'm Mike Graham. It's the Mike Graham Show, and we'll see you after this. Couple of tweets here, one from Ian, who says Starmer seems to just repeat his buzzwords like some weird neuro-linguistic programming. It's true. Graham says this, over 12,000 viewers, Mike, so a huge success on your first show, and a massive congratulations to you and the crew for such a fantastic programme. And it was great to see the beautiful Emma Wolf covering the newspapers with you. Great to have you back live, says Andrew Allison. Thoroughly enjoying the show. Thank you very much indeed. Morning from Worcestershire, says Becky. It was good to wake up to you again. This is all on Twitter. This is all great stuff. And let's say this one from Lynn. Great to have you back on telly, Mike. Super start this morning. Really enjoyed your show. Happy New Year and happy new show, Mike. Absolutely loving it. How about Archibald the Heron, says Becky. Well, we might go with Heron Mirren, I think that's what everybody likes. How about some super chats? Free speech for all says this. Great show. Thank you, Mr. Graham. Well, thank you for watching and everyone who's joined in. Another super chat from Brian. Heron, in my opinion. Mike's back. Yippee. #1 show. Veronica says Lula, is it? Super chat. Tamain says this. Croissant on me. No problem at all. We didn't get actually got any breakfast in here. I brought in a Scotch egg that I had this morning. I've got a banana to eat between now and when we talk to Angela Levin. Can we have a warning before you play a Starmer clip to give me time to go for a smoke so I don't have to suffer it, please? Says Katz. Starmer is a planker, says John Davis 3180. And super chat from James. Thank you very much indeed. Loads of you getting involved. It's really fantastic to see. Starmer looks and sounds like Crichton, a smeghead, says Christopher. I think we're almost out of time. We probably haven't got time to do any more news from Edward Hughes, have we? We could finish with that. This is our man in the bunker. He's been told don't send in any way any sort of text while you're reading the news, because the news is obviously very important, and we're also not giving him any taxpayer funded pension either, so it's already a beginning and a start on Hugh Edwards. It's Edward Hughes with the news. We'll see you tomorrow, but if you hang around and if you're on the Substack, we'll see you for the after show very shortly. This has been the Mike Graham Show. It's been brilliant. Thank you very much. I'll see you tomorrow.
There are amber alerts for snow and ice across parts of Scotland and other regions, prompting flight cancellations, travel disruption, and school closures as commuters face difficult conditions. In politics, Prime Minister Keir Starmer warned that efforts to remove him mid-term would plunge the country into chaos as Parliament resumes business this week, with key Home Office questions scheduled in the Commons. On the economy, HSBC became the first major lender to cut mortgage rates after the Bank of England's recent base rate reduction, offering potential relief for homeowners. Didn't Richard III work for HSBC? Meanwhile, economists warn UK unemployment could rise to an 11-year high in 2026 amid weak private sector activity and cost pressures. Elsewhere, life-saving efforts continue after a teenage girl and her mother were swept out to sea by a freak wave. And in entertainment, TV highlights include the long-awaited return of Inspector Lynley this evening.